Good evening and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show on this Friday, the 8th of December 2017. As you may hear from my voice, I'm still a little under the weather here. But fortunately, I have my co-panelist and all-around amazing guy, Stops Spamming. Good evening, Stops. How are you, sir?
There we go. Hi, everybody. Going strong, going well. Thank you very much. Yep, excellent. I'm still playing around because there's something new, and when there's something new, I'm always interested in finding out what it does, how it does, and what I can do to improve it.
Good stuff. Oh, that's always a way we can improve things. Any interesting news you've had this week?
No, nothing really. It's been horrific. I didn't have much time. I've been watching some videos, in the evening when you're not doing anything much, then you go and you check out what's new. You sent me a couple of things. I watched a couple of things. I found some really atrocious things. I have not managed to finalize my video with hijab. I found another one that I'm putting here. I don't know if we're going to be able to talk about this, but this is about, what was it? Hamza, the Darren Hamza, the red beard, and his moral standards, which is really, really bad.
Oh, right. Okay. That's a separate video. Well, depending on how long this one goes, we might, you're saying possibly discuss that one afterwards, or what do you mean?
Well, it depends on what we want to do, how soon we get through it or whatever. If there is a need of something, then I can always go into this one.
Cool. Okay, good stuff. So I guess, as always, first off, let me start with some crazy comments. Why not? Oops, I can't share crazy comments with this link. Had this happen before. So just a note to anybody who's out there, if you join with Chromium, you can't share your screen. So that's a pain in the butt.
Values. Yeah, my moral anchor. No,
sometimes in the background there. Are you just testing it?
Yes. Did you hear this?
Yes, yeah, I could hear you now. What I need to do though is, I'm guessing I'm going to have to join this link as Speakers Corner UK, so I can actually share my screen, and then I'll just dump that again. But I'll share the screen with that one. So I might get feedback on my headphones here as well. Anyway, we'll give it a go and see what happens. Can you hear me okay now?
Still can, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right, so I can hear myself there. I'm going to stop that.
Are you a schizo now?
Do I sound funny?
No, it's just that you hear twice.
Let me just do something here to try and disable this. Hopefully that works now.
Find this now to see the chat.
Let me share my screen in a moment here. There we go. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that. That's coming up on the screen there. So here's our first
films. I did Dawa films many, many years ago, a couple of times.
What's that?
There's somebody in the chat talking about Dawa films.
Oh, right.
When he had this little tiff with Thunderfoot, then I took a video from Dawa film. And this is how actually I started, because I made a video on this, and Thunderfoot saw this and favorited it. And he put this on Twitter and told everybody to go and look at what I said about Dawa films. And this is suddenly how I gained something like 1,000 subscribers overnight.
It's great when one of the big channels sort of adds you, just get so many subscribers. Are you seeing my screen there?
Yes.
The screen share. Because from what I can tell, it's not being seen.
No, it's
the viewers, if you're watching,
well. And Mariam and so on, yeah.
Is that how? There we go. That's what I needed to do. Trying to run a dual hangout with you is not easy. coming up for everybody. I'm just going to wait to make sure that everybody can see that now.
I don't try
Now
to
you
know
should
because
be
he's
seeing
asking how many
Great,
subscribers
so
that
here
I
we
have.
go. Rusty Nail. Okay. How many?
I don't remember. I think it was somewhere. It was below 10,000 though. But remember, I've always run multiple programs with
Still, that's a
multiple
good
channels
number.
with different contents, so it's a bit difficult to keep track. So I've never added everything up because I suppose most of them are duplicates. I would hope so that people understood the whole thing would have duplicates and so on. So, and then this Dawa Films guy, he came on the Jinn&Tonic show trying to mock us because he had another guy, I forgot his name. He used to be quite popular in those days. And they started their own show, which was supposed to be the anti-Jinn&Tonic show. And then they did 2 shows, and that was it, end of story. Couldn't handle it.
Right. Good show. Let's go for it. Rusty Nail. Not Ishika, so he's obviously speaking to somebody else here. I know there's a degree of faith. Concrete evidence that makes me go, yeah, there's no doubt now. Much. Okay, interesting. I read them a lot about Islam and parts of the Quran, but I never sat down and read it all. Thing to do before I ask any questions. I was going to buy it on Amazon because I didn't really read it on my phone. And then somebody responds, I think you might be, I know what this is, sorry. So this is some guy that's interested, and so this is somebody to presumably. I think you might be overwhelmed with loads of information about Islam. So try to take it slow and stick to good sources, like Brother Hijab, because otherwise it can be confusing. The internet is a place where anybody and everyone can give their own opinions without knowledge.
Yes, Mariam.
From there. Rusty, now, faith instead of meaning blind faith also means this and what Islam offers.
Trust you to
I'm not
evidence.
sure that if you are interested in, I'm not sure that from either of those two folks would be what one, you were looking to.
Oh shit, you're
Islam.
cutting out
I don't
because
think
I
Brother
think you joined
Hijab
twice, and now this is
probably
getting a bit too much for your connection.
Okay.
Nadia Ahmed, yes, he's another candidate that we had here on the show. No, Rob is not using a new microphone. It's his connection, because remember, he's logged in twice. So that has doubled the load on his connection, plus he's sharing the screen. So this is quite difficult on a connection if it's a little bit glitchy. Okay, so now he's dropped the one. So this means this is the problem if you're using different browsers, because Hangouts is very finicky. Like you can't do, like I have 2 browsers here where I cannot screen share. So I had to install Google only to bloody well screen share the stuff, which is ridiculous because they're so they're so finicky with what they accept and what they don't. And if Rob is joining with this one, then he can't screen share as well. So he needs to come and join with another one so that he can screen share, which is a pity. And then with the
Is that better? I've disconnected the other account. Yeah, I'm in a hotel at the moment, and
yeah, there's a huge difference.
Diabolically bad. So I apologize to everybody. I'm going to read these out. I've got them in front of me here. I know it's nice to read along, but the browser that I've started this Hangout on won't allow that. I mean, I could just kill this browser, I guess, and join a speaker's corner, but then I'm not sure if I can rejoin to stop the Hangout. So please bear with me. Apologies. I'm going to not use this browser in future for running the show because I just can't screen share with it. So let's get on to comment number 2 here. The atheist forgot his logic on the shelf at home. He's just there rather than to engage with the arguments. However, I like the fact that Bob wasn't fazed, held his composure, and kept schooling the fool. So I apologize. I can't remember what that was in relation to. If he's talking about Bob, it might be Bob the Builder. I'm not sure. Oh, yes, this was, I think, Bob the Builder. Yes, this was Bob the Builder talking to Steve. This was the only case of Bob the Builder that I've seen where he's engaged with an atheist, and it didn't go particularly well. And this, I'm guessing, is a Christian thinking that the atheist forgot his logic on the shelf. And of course, he thought that Bob was just schooling the atheist, as some of these people do. I want to welcome Raven. We'll just carry on. I've got about 10 of these to go through, so I'll read them as best I can. Again, apologies.
Hey,
Apologies, you aren't seeing
this. What are you doing with your microphone?
Excuse me. So I've provided. Okay, so this is now somebody. This is quite a long one here. This was in relation. I'll tell you the context here. The context was, this was Mansur. This is a comment on Mansur's thing, where Mansur goes, no, Nobel Peace Prize are not a good way to determine, whether certain people have got, it distinguishes either a race or people or whatever the case was. And I went in and put a comment in there and said, well, and Stops and I talked about this before, where I put in the comment. I think we had the original comment as well, where I noted all of the Nobel Prize winners and how many were Jewish and how many were Muslim, etc. And so this was somebody's response. I provided something that I personally understood to be like the Quran multiple times. No, you have provided something ridiculously mundane, to say the least. The Quran does state clearly that you do have to provide some Arabic knowledge people to attest.
No, it doesn't.
Of course not. But it clearly does, according to this person. I am always clearly it says things to certain people. So obviously it has multiple messages that are very clear to certain people. Now you bring all those people together, and we just don't have that one clear message. Strange that, isn't it?
Yeah.
This person carries on. Obviously you didn't, and you are not part of them either. Provide some, I don't know what that meant. There is no accepted definition of what like is. Like is obvious if you were eloquent in Arabic. So again, apparently like is obvious if you're eloquent in Arabic. So this is the whole, return to Arabic. So when you bring out an English language and you want to talk about a definition, then of course they will fall back when they're in a corner and basically say, oh, well, no, it means something different in Arabic. My comment was about pointing out that an idiotic and illogical fool, the Muslim apologist is. This wasn't me speaking. I didn't make this comment. Who is the Muslim apologist? There is no such thing as that in Islam. Islam is a religion of Allah, and it's the final complete one. It is more than set in stone, no additions. And then he says, you don't get a Nobel Peace Prize for writing faulty fairy tales full of flaws. And this is the person responding, not to me, but to another commenter. In fact, you would, because the planet Earth is full of wealthy people whose biggest dream it is to break the Quran. Really? Here's the other thing that somebody said. If you would honestly accept it, if you mean in every aspect, grammar, vocabulary, structure, poem, rhythm, etc., accuracy, sound meaning, consistency, relevance, etc., on the condition that you accept Islam, when you will fail, then yes. Okay. That whole sentence is very badly written in English. Not only that, I would convert to atheism, even though atheism is nonsense, since if you break this challenge, you would make us Muslim nonsensical after all. So again, here's one of these Muslims who claims that he would convert to atheism, even though he thinks it's nonsense. So that tells me quite a bit about somebody's rational and critical thinking faculties. If you would convert to something else purely, even if you believe it's nonsense, because somebody broke the challenge, quote, broke the challenge, even though the challenge is unfalsifiable or it's like a tap dance, you can never apparently seem to get it. And Stops is very well given me something on that we can do a show on at some point that I will look at doing with people who have claimed to have met the challenge. But again, no matter what anybody brings, these guys can bring out something to tell you it hasn't met the challenge. So the textbook definition, in my opinion, of unfalsifiability. Moving on, here's one of Stops's ones. So Stops says, Stops is responding. Here is what a Muslim commenter said. How the Islamic conquest of Spain actually benefited them, in inverted commas. Stops replies, I don't know whether whether to call you sick or sad. No clue, no education, but a huge mouth and a brain full of false propaganda. And you don't even care about human lives or peaceful existence. And somebody else responds,
how can you laugh about my serious comment?
Maybe because I'm slightly ill. It somewhat amuses me. African refugees bought, sold, and murdered in Libya. Somebody else posted a link to all the African refugees. And this person responds to you. Stop spamming. You don't care about human lives or peaceful existence, said the pathetic CUNT who proposed that we have another Holocaust against Muslims. Where does this guy get this from? You supposedly propose we have another Holocaust against Muslims. The conquest of Spain happened over 1400.
I love Muslims, especially the female ones.
But you're not allowed to do that, you see. The conquest of Spain happened over
Tell the female Muslims, they don't know this.
Right. So you should stop bitching now. Where, yes, the Muslims did in fact contribute to math, science, medicine, architecture, things we can all appreciate and benefit from today. All your people ever did to other civilizations was genocide, colonize, then benefit from subjugating the natives, the civilizations they colonized. I bet apartheid brings back happy memories for your kind, whatever your kind is supposed to be. Any normal, non-sick, non-sad person that hated the West as much as you hate Islam sure as hell wouldn't choose to live among them. So perhaps if you got the F out of Doha and called back to the hell you came from, aka South Africa, maybe you wouldn't have to bitch, yap, and complain about Islam so much. Well, there we go. Stops. Hopefully that's put you in your place.
I cried for hours.
I know. There we go. The fantasy. Another one from yourself. You wrote, I wonder whether Sabur realized he was schooled and cut down to size. All he did was drop some names, not understanding evolution or anything scientific. Somebody responded to you, stop spamming, brown nose, Sharia, hypocrite.
I love these guys. They're so good.
Don't ever bring an argument to suggest that you might be wrong and back it up with anything called facts, which
Exactly.
a number of Muslims appear to be allergic to. Here's somebody else who thought he was particularly smart. So this person was responding to myself and Phil, more Phil, because Phil was doing the talking in that particular video, if you remember, with Hamza and Imran. Obviously, dear Rob and Phil are not experts in this subject. You both haven't studied reliability of Muslim sources. Nevertheless, with some kind of magic trick, you both automatically dismiss the provided source, even without even investigating the claims. First, study these claims. And only then, if you doubt scholarly decisions on this topic, please provide your evidence. Otherwise, this is just your non-academic opinion based on nothing other than your thoughts. So again, to put this into context, this was Phil doubting whether, I think it was, what was it? It was something that they claimed about Muhammad, that only, that he was illiterate and so forth. And Phil's point was, well, when he had investigated, he couldn't find any independent verification. It was all just his followers, which, there's a possibility that's the case, because the claim on its own that he's illiterate is a mundane claim, but then you put that with the Qur'an, that's obviously now becomes an extraordinary claim. So somebody who supposedly couldn't read or write authors this amazing magical book. And so that's what Phil was actually asking. And of course,
or to summarize what Rob just said, learn the difference between claims and evidence.
Well, exactly. If you're going to bring us an extraordinary claim, then the sources around Muhammad himself, who thought he was like God's messenger, who would have done anything and said anything he did, are not the most reliable people. They may well have given accurate information, but in order to establish that was an extraordinary claim, you need other sources, Christians, their enemies, whatever the case may be. Excuse me. And that's what Phil's claim was, that he couldn't find corroborating evidence outside of the people that surrounded Muhammad. And of course, Darren Hamza's response was, well, can you falsify it? The shifting of the burden of proof just is something that appears to go over certain people's heads. Moving on. He has another one with Phil and myself in that video, because I obviously responded to a few comments in the video with Phil. I think you and Phil are the ones who are confused. Evidence? What a joke. What evidence do you guys have? Not even brave enough to stand on any theory. Phil's epistemology, scientific method in inverted commas. He's very strong. It's weak. If I tell you, word games, he spins so much the world starts to spin faster than it should. Sabur did you good. The wound still hurt, huh? Well, what can I say? Truth hurts.
I don't know why people still do this. But it shows you how selective they are, because you brought up a video where you explained the whole thing and you showed how dishonest Sabur is. I mean, there are so many videos out there now that show he is a complete fool and people still worship him. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, I just put that down to, you know, an amazing cognitive bias. Now, we all have cognitive biases in favor of whatever our beliefs are. Some of us hope that if we presented overwhelming evidence or something, would change our mind. But this is a case of, but also I think it's a case that they don't understand that when Phil says we don't know, that he's obviously speaking on behalf of the scientists that he studied, and they are saying we don't know, as in we, a collective cosmological astronomers, scientists, etc. And he says that, and obviously this is not the only one, there's many ignorant Muslims who say this, that says your position is weak. And obviously they confuse the fact that we don't know something, even though we've got a lot of information, evidence pointing to certain things, because we haven't got something perfect or certain, or whatever term you want to use, that's weak. And they don't realize that, you know, they don't have anything else. What position are they in to justify that they have got any other claim than when the smartest human beings on the planet, who are specialists, who have been, you know, standing on each other's shoulders for the last 500 years, and certainly the last 100 plus after Einstein, don't say we don't know? What gives them justification to say anything? They should all be agnostic at the very best. But of course, this goes over their heads.
You know, I want to actually quickly ask you something.
Raven, just before this disappeared, there's a comment. Rob, Sabur destroyed you. I don't know how he destroyed you, but he did.
Sorry, what did he say? What was the comment?
Sabur destroyed you.
Sabur destroyed you. I don't know how he destroyed you, but he did.
See, isn't it beautiful? I don't know.
No. This is Devil's Advocate.
Oh, you were playing Devil's. Yeah.
This was not me. No. This is Rafi going crazy.
Oh, he's playing Devil's Advocate. Yes, yeah. Rafi sent me some stuff actually. I will bring that in. Please remind me when you get into the video. He put a few comments in. He's a non-believer. We're friends on Facebook, so I'll read a few of his comments because he watched the video ahead of time, and so he had a few comments.
I love it. It summarizes it so well. I don't know how, but he.
Yeah, Raven, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just on that comment about smart people and claims. I want to know what you both think of this, because has either of you seen that video head to head on, I think, Al Jazeera, where Richard Dawkins was talking to Mehdi Hassan?
Yes, unfortunately.
Right. Well, after because I think it was during the interview itself, Richard Dawkins says to Mehdi Hassan that he hasn't actually read the Qur'an, and after the talk, Dawkins tweeted on Twitter, "Do I need to read Mein Kampf to know it's racist?" And my immediate thought, as soon as I read that, was, well, yeah, obviously you do, because if you haven't read Mein Kampf for yourself, then you don't know for a fact it is racist. All you're doing is believing what other people have told you. You don't know unless you read it. And like, what do you think of that? Like, even if it's something like Mein Kampf, which is so notorious, if you haven't actually read it for yourself, aren't you just believing reviews?
I think the point is that you don't need to read every single sentence and memorize it and then be able to quote it afterwards to be able to make that statement. I think this is what Professor Dawkins was referring to, that you don't need to know the whole thing. It's enough to read a couple of chapters of Mein Kampf and to read every second page to come to that conclusion. To be able to come to that conclusion.
Saying, you know, he's never read a single word of Mein Kampf. You know, do I need to read it to know it's racist?
Did he say that?
Which I think, yes.
Okay, I'm not sure on that. Again, tweets are sometimes a bit vague, but if the tweet is exactly the way you said, then that, it seems to me, I would take a hazard a guess that he may not have read it, but it could be that, as Stop said, he's read part of it or taking it based on other people. Now, I guess my point is, if you have reliable people, so if you trust people who have shown and demonstrated their honesty, and they read a book and they say to you, here's my assessment of it, you could take that as opposed to reading the book. But if you went into an intellectual discussion, then I would say, yes, it would be useful if you actually read it. So if Dawkins was going to talk to somebody about Mein Kampf, then obviously it would be useful if you read it. If he hasn't read it for whatever reason, and he's got opinions from other people that he trusts that have read it and are trustworthy people, and they say, here's my thing. I mean, you could take it. It's debatable depending on the level of it. So, but I do agree with you to a point that it is useful for you to read something to make your own assessment.
I think if he hasn't read Mein Kampf for himself, he doesn't know it's racist. He just believes it.
Yes. Now the question is he justified in believing it? So is testimony or second-hand evidence?
Now everybody is speculating.
Well, I don't know whether it is justifiable to believe. I don't know if it is justifiable to believe it. Like, for example, I remember a couple of years ago, everyone was going all crazy for M theory. Like, M theory is this, M theory is that. Now, I don't accept any part of M theory as being true. And the reason I don't accept that M theory is true is because I don't understand M theory. And if I don't understand it, I cannot make a judgment on how valid I think it is. So I'm not going to say M theory is not true. I'm not going to say it's not valid. I'm saying I'm not going to accept it as valid, because I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I can't say it is because I don't understand it. Has my computer crashed? Hello?
No, it's just okay. No, I was waiting for Rob to.
Yeah, sorry, I was coughing there. Well, then you'd be agnostic on it. But I don't want to divert too far away. There's some comments there coming in that you've sort of gone a little bit off tangent there. Let me just read the next one. I would say you just got to be agnostic. If you don't have enough information on something, then agnosticism would probably be the way to go. But I'm open to being corrected on that. Let's move on to the next one here. I think our last Jinn&Tonic show, and I've spoken to this person again since, and I think I won't be wasting too much time speaking to them again. Quite a list of Islamophobes, Rob, and I responded, thinkers who care about truth, which accurately represents our position. Now, that's what you call bigots now? Bill freaking Warner next. Who's really next? The Grand Wizard of the KKK? Whatsoever, Rob. And I responded, yeah, you can throw out the bigot word and cry wolf, but eventually that word will lose all meaning. Let me fill you in on what bigot actually means. A person who is intolerant towards those holding different opinions. Try to demonstrate he is a bigot, he being Bill Warner, is intolerant towards those holding different opinions, as opposed to a critic who has taken a great deal of time to look into Islam. There are many critics, but go on, I challenge you to demonstrate he's a bigot, ... but I won't hold my breath. So anybody that's some of these Muslims, again, not all Muslims, but some of the more sort of ignorant and emotional ones. Moving on. Let me just see here. So this wasn't, I don't think this was actually, was this a crazy comment? Let me read this and decide whether this is a crazy comment. So somebody wrote, I'm not sure which video this on, I'll know when I get to the end, but I won't sort of go through it, I'll read it immediately. Somebody commented, it seemed like this agnostic was just making things up as he was going along. He spent so much time trying to find faults in Islam, brought a notepad with lists of points on to argue, yet he's clueless about his own beliefs. We were lucky to have brothers like Sabur and Brother Hijab, two intellectual minds of the highest level, who are able to not just debate, but rebuke every single point argument a kafir brings forth. Real defenders of Islam. The park will stand witness for all these brothers, inshallah. So I think that was on a video with this guy called Jamie. He's the white guy that wore the straw hat. I think he was talking about, I don't know if it was something. So of course, again, these other brothers are held in very high esteem there by us. So that brings us to the end of that. I will now hand over to you, Stops, so that you can, so we can go ahead and start commenting mostly about. We've done a good half hour of comments there. So apologies to everybody who's listening why I couldn't show the comments on Chrome, and I'll be able to share my screen with all future crazy comments.
Okay.
Stops.
Well, we decided we're going to comment a little bit on some videos from Speaker's Corner, because those always have a high entertainment value level in my eyes anyway. And what we can do is, I'm not 100% sure. Does anybody want to see Mansur talking to an atheist making a fool of himself when he is talking about the origin of matter? Or do you prefer Hamza, Darren Redbeard Hamza, what's an atheist's moral anchor? Or do you just want to watch evidence for a multiverse in NASA? I've got all three set up. And alternatively, if none of those should suffice, I also have as a back burner, I have the entire, what do you call it, Dawa Media video collection here, if somebody wants anything specific from there. So those are the options. Any indications, anything else? Otherwise, I will just start with Mansur, if that is okay.
Yeah, let's start with Mansur.
Let's start with Mansur. I don't see any objections, so you've had the chance to object. Now that's it. Forever.
Not objecting. Just a quick question. Is this like is this one of those things where if we want to comment on something, we just speak and you pause it, or do we just be quiet and watch the whole thing?
I was just going to explain that. I'm going to play this, and hopefully the audio will be clear. And then if anybody wants to comment, I will be reading the comments as well. And if anybody here wants to comment, you'll just have to say whoa, 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 stop, or something like this, and I will stop the video. Okay.
All right, Stops. Before you start, I'll just make it the main video so that none of us speak over it, so the video will stay on speaking. Just again, credits to, I think it's Dawa Media. If you want to go watch these videos in full on their channel, it's available on their channel. I think that's just right that we are borrowing the videos. We will be responding to them, so we're adding criticism and comment to them. The standard YouTube license critical evaluation of videos is allowed on YouTube, but we're happy to tell people, and I'll even put in the link if necessary, to go to the Dawa Media channel if you want to watch. They have, you're spoiled for choice if you are a non-Muslim to go and look for videos there, even if you're a Muslim, but certainly if you're a non-Muslim, they've got so many that we could choose from to evaluate the ones, because these claims come up a lot. And so you'll see Mansur on the left there is the Muslim, and then Johnny is the English guy holding the camera there, who's kind of his respondent. So that's why I sort of brought this video up initially. All right, off we go. We'll just say stop. So I will just shout out stop.
I want to point something out. There are different options. You can use a phone. You could use a camcorder, which also does still photography, or you can use an SLR, which is still photography, to take video. Now, there's different pluses and minuses to all of those. And actually, I prefer using a camcorder simply because of the format. That I can put it into a kangaroo pouch, take it anywhere I want, and I can also take high quality photos with it, which I can't do with the SLR, because I found that I need a separate camera bag if I want to lug it around. And this is something that I have stopped. So it's lying in the corner and I'm not using it anymore. I'm always carrying the small camcorder, exactly like the one that he has there, because it is so portable. That's why, fits into a pocket. So that's why I like it. Okay.
Also got the advantage of a zoom on there. So again, with the DSLR use, I took to the park with my last videos. I took the GoPro Hero 6.
Yeah, that's also an option. Yeah.
But the other big reason for these sort of, if you're going to film these discussions, you want a wide angle lens, and none of the camcorders have got wide enough that you can have two people in it. So you've got to keep swinging the camera left and right. So the advantage of an action cam is generally they've got a very wide angle view. So you can put the camera there, you get both people in, you can get the camera quite close to them. You've got the audio on top of that with a small portable pistol. My DSLR also got a wide angle lens, but so you've got to kind of whip it around if you are filming from. That's probably the only downside, but otherwise I'd agree with you that they're very handy, portable, easy to use, got a lot of advantages.
Correct. And now most programs can correct for the for the bending if you're taking wide shots or something. So that's also okay. All right.
Pro does that as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Dawa Media and somebody who apparently is an atheist, who is a non-believer, who is a non-Muslim. Let me try this if I can do this. Okay. You see this guy here. This is the, what you would call it, the non-Muslim. And this here, juke, it works. Wow. Can you see the arrows?
Yes, we can see it. That looks good.
Brilliant. And this is Mansur. And note that this Mansur is talking to the guy with the glasses holding the camera, but he is so afraid of him that he doesn't look at him. This is quite amazing, something that I noticed, that for some odd reason, he avoids eye contact with him. Okay.
Comes from what's in matter. Oh, no, the origin of matter, nobody knows because it could have always been there.
But you believe in it?
Or it might have just started. Because I can experience matter,
So
yes.
So
I can experience.
One thing I want to say, this is always something that I can't understand. Why do they always say, do you believe in? When they say something, do you believe in matter? You can't believe in matter. You believe matter exists, but not in matter.
I do know.
No, but you don't know.
No, I do know. Look, matter.
Your point is you don't know.
It's not wrong saying you don't know.
Look, nobody knows where it comes from.
So how can you claim certainty?
Oh, this is still the intro.
I think just
Actually, have one at home. Is that a fairy tale?
Because what they do is they first give you an intro, they first give you a taste of what is to come, and then they start with the actual video.
Now, no.
Oh, not
But
now.
at the time,
Wait,
they
wait.
had no pen that was created before the beginning of the universe.
Let's understand one thing. So, before the beginning of the universe, if God creates something, are you saying in the future we're able to create ourselves, but God cannot create something like that before?
No. He had a pen, yes, but not a talking pen.
When you know a pen, the pen, my digital pen today is still a digital pen.
Today, yeah, today,
Pen,
yeah.
pen. If my pen talks today, it's not a fairy tale.
Not today.
I don't know if anybody noticed. He says,
Okay, there's so much wrong with that. You want to start?
they don't know the difference between a belief on something and an opinion on something.
And the thing is, what he
What
he calls a talking pen is just a device that can repeat some pre-recorded sentences, and he calls it a talking pen because it can reproduce noises. That's all it can do. He calls it a talking pen. He's so cute.
Yeah, I want to just comment as well. Hang on a sec. And from Raphael, one of our chat people, stops there. Mansur's pen analogy was pretty stupid. The pen itself doesn't talk. It's an electronic device attached to it that records sound. Then it was typical. Allah would do anything, so it's not a problem for him. The problem is that we don't believe it. Now, he's claiming that this is a magical pen. We have examples of, quote, some kind of talking pen, as in like some pen that can record information. So it's clearly an equivocation with some magical pen, and then trying to show that because we have pens today, therefore they're justified in believing that Allah created a talking pen. It's the difference between an extraordinary claim and a mundane claim, obviously.
Yeah. Continue.
Go for it.
Because it's got computer programming in it.
Right. So God gave us the brains and the intelligence to make talking pen. And yet, according to your logic, God cannot create a pen that talks.
Well, no, we had to work this out for ourselves.
Note how he is twisting the claim around. Nobody claimed that God cannot create or whatever, come up with a talking pen. It's exactly what Rob just pointed out. It's a magical pen, and that is the thing that I would reject out straightforward.
How to make a talking pen.
I want to understand your logic. Is this coming from your atheistic logic? Where God is unable to create a pen that talks, but human beings...
So stops. I wanted to say something on that there. Notice what he also did there. He's begging the question that God can make a magical pen. At no point did Johnny agree that God could make a magical pen.
Yeah. And you also
God can create a magical
that
pen,
God can
then
create
why
humans.
can't you? You need to provide the evidence. I was listening to some other stuff, so I'm sort of finely tuned at the moment to people begging the question, in other words, assuming the response that they need to actually prove. And so he just assumes that, hey, if God can create it, if man can do it, then God can create one. But he's assuming now that God created them, and then asking Johnny to disprove it. That's not how it works.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I really want to just mention this conversation I had with someone a while ago who was a Muslim, because I want people to keep this conversation in mind as they watch this video, because you can tell already where it's going. So a while ago, I was talking to this Muslim and I said, I can prove that the Viking gods exist. And he said, how? Because I was forged in Valhalla by the hammer of Thor. And he said, no, Valhalla doesn't exist. Well, obviously it does. How do you know? Well, because here I am. How the hell can Valor not exist if I exist? And I've just told you I was forged in Valhalla by the hammer of Thor. Just keep that logic in mind as we watch this video.
Yeah.
Able to create a pen that talks.
Yeah, that's right.
Then I'm sorry, I cannot continue the discussion any further.
Why
Because
not?
it's because
you believe God created the pen before.
Did you stop it there, Stops? Hello?
Hello.
Stops, you're frozen there. We can't hear you, and you've stopped the video.
Forged in Valhalla by the hammer.
Okay. Stops, you've also dropped, so your minicam program is no longer presenting. I've got your icon coming up now. Sorry, folks. I think something's happened on Stop's side there. We can't see the video now, Stops. Maybe that's Allah telling us we shouldn't be reviewing or commenting on a video where one of his servants is.
Maybe the old man's finally gone senile.
Which one? Stops, are you there?
I love a man that can laugh at himself.
So you do know.
No, but you don't know.
No, I do know. Look, Matt.
Your point is you don't know. Where it comes
Stops, are you with us? We can hear the video, by the way. Just can't hear you now.
I'm looking on the YouTube, and it looks like it's playing on.
Well, nobody knows.
All right, can you hear me now?
Wait, I'm not sure.
There we go. I can hear you now. Yep.
Yeah, the thing crashed. I don't know why.
But unstable. New version straight out of the blocks.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And also, when you start commenting, Stops, you're very soft. It's like your mic voice back up after you stop the video. I'm not sure that's something you can you can correct right now, but just to bear in mind.
1, 2, 3. Is that better? Is that louder now?
I can hear you now, yeah. But when you start the video, you run it, and then you stop it. There's like you're very soft, and then you slowly sort of come up to full mic volume. So I don't know if it's trying to fade you in some way.
Probably yes. I would need to remove auto gain.
Yes, and maybe also, yeah, you're not swapping pictures. I was going to say don't use transition, just cut between the two.
That's
so
what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
I'm just trying to see if I have noise suppression. No, I have nothing on. All right, shall we continue? Sorry about that.
No worries.
from. So how can you claim certainty then?
This is starting from the big. Yes, I hate these guys.
Yeah, just go forward a bit.
Why they do this? That you have to go to the front. Okay.
Thank you for the evidence of gravity, because obviously.
No, I need to go back a bit. Sorry.
It's close enough, I think. It's just about there.
Yeah, what's the proof?
My friend, allow me. So when we talk about gravity.
No, this is already here. I don't even know if this is still the preview or if this is now the video.
I cannot continue the discussion any further.
Why not?
It's because
you believe God created the pen before anything else?
No, because I think you're not really using your mind, your senses.
Yeah.
Because human beings can create a pen that talks, but God is unable to create a pen that talks.
That's right, especially God that doesn't exist. Right, is there any proof of this pen? Because we can prove that we've got the pen that we've made talk. Have you got any proof of the...
please note here that what the non-Muslim is actually doing very well is that he is not allowing this Mansur guy to run away with the topic, like totally run it, because he's trying to divert it. He's trying to go to his talking pen, and the non-Muslim says, no,
Yeah.
let's stay with your pen and let's talk about your pen. And you will notice that he's going to do this a couple of times, because obviously Mansur is very uncomfortable with this, because there's nothing that he can, bring up that is in any way going to refute it. So he's going to try everything he can to get away from this magic pen.
Okay, but did you also listen there, Stops, earlier on? There was a sentence, and again, I'm looking now more closely at these Muslim apologists' tactics. It's not just what they say, which is one thing, but there's a certain way in which they say it. He said earlier on a word to the effect of, are you saying that just because he said it along the lines of, well, man can create this pen, so why can't God create it? In other words, Johnny, you now have to explain to us why it's impossible for God to create a talking pen when we know man can do it. And so these are the subtle. Now, Johnny, as you quite rightly said, these guns and went, we know about the man creating these pens. Can you give us evidence for your talking pen? And this is the thing to bear in mind. These tactics of, I'm going to make a statement which isn't what the other person has agreed to, and I'm going to ask you, the other person with whom I'm speaking, imagining I'm Mansur now, to disprove.
Well, these tactics work purely because of conversational politeness. What you do is, like, someone says something and you say something that has nothing to do with what the person actually said, but kind of sounds like it does. Like, maybe you put in one word that they said, and then you just lead the conversation in a different way. Like, imagine if someone was talking about racism, and you're like, yeah, well, I mean, like, the hate crimes that emos go through. Okay, you're not seriously comparing, like, people smacking an emo kid to historic racism, are you? No, of course not. But if you actually think of what a hate crime is, then the emo experience, and you just lead it like that, and then because and then, like, people will just be talking about emos, and then it's like you have to think, hang on a minute, when the fuck did we start talking about emos? What happened? And that's what people like. It's like, what happened? And you have to go back and realize, you don't just have someone's deliberately manipulated it. Because, yeah, we're talking about discrimination, let's introduce this topic, and then it just goes on. And I think a lot of it is really politeness, because it kind of seems like they're replying. And it's a very sneaky trick. It's sleight of hand.
Yeah. That's the tactics. Men created a pen. Why can't men create gods?
Why can't God create it? I mean, it seems so reasonable.
Exactly. Okay, shall we?
How on earth can you deny this? I mean, it's virtually self-evident, isn't it?
Especially with the future, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
Alamate.
Do you believe in gravity?
Yeah.
Again, do you believe in gravity? What kind of a question is that?
Stops. How would you respond to that? How would you respond to that?
No.
What would you say okay, no, obviously I agree with you. What would you say instead?
I don't believe in anything.
Okay, tell me.
I believe things where there is a reason to believe things, but I don't believe in anything. So I would tell people, this is stupid with the in, because believing in something is irrational.
I would only have said that if it had asked me specifically, because if he said, do you believe in gravity? I would have said no. And I wouldn't have delved more into it unless either I thought I could move the conversation to my advantage, or
exactly
directly asked.
Exactly.
That'd be my response. No, I don't believe in gravity.
Yeah, I would probably have said I believe in, because we all have beliefs about things, but I would have just said I believe in the concept of gravity, and gravity is just a label for a concept that we understand, which is bodies being attracted to each other, etc. But now, as we see now, notice where he tries to take this. Because this is a common tactic, by the way, and we'll talk about it as he goes through it. So,
like my emo example.
No, I'll just ask you a question. Don't change the subject.
No, I want to
ask you your proof of the pen.
Listen.
What's your proof of the pen?
The reason why we're asking this question is to demonstrate the inconsistency in your thinking.
Of you, you're thinking, where's the proof of the pen?
Allow me.
It's okay to say in the story, he created a pen. What's the proof?
My friend.
Yeah, the inconsistency of your thinking. That's not what it is about at all, because he is simply asking a question. And here I must commend whoever this is, who is the non-Muslim, for not being, sidetracked and saying, listen, let's just talk about the pen. I'm asking you, do you have any kind of evidence or okay, I hate the word proof, any kind of evidence for the existence of this pen or whatever this pen may be? Let's not talk about gravity or anything. Let's stick to the pen. He's just asking a question. So there's no inconsistency in the thought at all. But already Mansur is accusing the non-Muslim of doing something that he's not doing.
Okay, hang on a second.
So,
well, he's got a certain script, hasn't he? He can't deviate from it because he's got nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. He's sort of bringing up a red herring, so he's sidestepping answering the question. But Johnny, his name is Johnny, by the way, the atheist guy. Johnny is sticking to his guns, but he has a response to our what we just said in the comments. Do you believe in gravity? This is by a Muslim, I think, EBTV. Do you believe in gravity means do accept it exits? I'm not sure. Do you believe in gravity means do you accept it exits? I'm not sure. Maybe that's a spelling mistake.
Well, I just said earlier in the show, didn't I, that they conflate opinion with belief. Like, I have opinions about things that I don't necessarily believe or disbelieve in. Like, an opinion is not the same as a belief.
How's it different?
If you actually believe something, then it's sort of like being a theist or being an agnostic in a way. Like, I sort of view my opinions on things. It's like, okay, I'm open to be convinced. Where if I believe something, it's like, okay, I actually believe it's true. Like, if someone were to say to me, okay, do you believe in gravity? I would be able very easily to tell them in detail about why I do not believe in it and why it doesn't require belief. Whether if it was about, let's say, the Loch Ness Monster, then if I thought the Loch Ness Monster was true, that wouldn't be an opinion. There's no real way to actually base an opinion on it. It would just have to be a belief.
Yeah, I think for me personally, belief and opinion is pretty much interchangeable. It might be defined slightly differently, but colloquially, I think it's interchangeable. There's a huge difference between belief and knowledge, but belief and opinion, for me anyway, and I stand correct. I'm happy to stand corrected. Is pretty much interchangeable normally. Well,
I don't have the opinion that my mum will always love me. I genuinely believe my mum will always love me. Till the day she dies, I believe she'll love me. It's not an opinion, it's a belief.
Yeah, okay. Depends how you use it, I suppose. All it means is that you've got a high level of certainty in your opinion. If I looked at it from the outside, your opinion is your mum loves you. Can you demonstrate she loves you? Yes. Could you be wrong about that?
Well, no. I didn't say my mum loves me. I said I believe she will always love me. I could actually demonstrate my mum loves me. I could put her in certain situations which would demonstrate something that we would consider to be love. I could like spend time with her, hug her, and then just stick a needle in her, take a blood sample, and we could actually study the hormones, the endorphins, things like that. There's so many tests you can do where it comes to heart rate, pupil dilation, like so many things you can do. Well, this comes into the science of emotion, like where you can study emotion and what causes emotion, and you can look at the process of emotions and effects. So I could actually show as a fact my mum loves me, but I cannot say as a fact she will always love me. Decades from now, until the day she dies, I can show you for a fact that she will love me unconditionally. I can't demonstrate that, but I do believe it, and that's not an opinion, it's a belief. I truly believe that.
All right, carry on, Stops.
I just want to, I don't know who EbTV is. He says, I need maturity. Well, that's a bit laughable, because a little bit later he says, I don't quite understand this. You accept gravity exists and you cannot mock the question. And he says, I need maturity. Now, just to explain this, if you want maturity, you cannot ask, do you believe in gravity? So I am going to mock the question, because it's the same thing as if somebody asks me how fast is Saturday. I will mock the question because it's nonsensical. There is no sense in asking, do you believe in gravity? And that's why I'm mocking this, because it's totally, totally ridiculous. And this is why the answer is going to be no. If somebody wants to ask me, do you accept gravity? He should ask, do you accept gravity? But not, do you believe in gravity? There is no belief associated with gravity.
But so like, there is no belief associated with gravity, but there is belief in the Loch Ness Monster.
For example.
Yeah.
All right. So that's just as an explanation why it is that I'm mocking the question. It really is pretty. I mean, they always say there are no stupid questions, but this is an example of one.
Am I coming through?
You are cutting out tremendously. You need to do something, man. It's bad.
Oh dear.
Are you saying something?
Okay, carry on.
Ah, yeah. Now I heard you.
No.
Okay, fine.
When we talk about gravity, do we have any proof, as it stands today, of something called like gravitons or gravitational?
What the fuck is he on about? He's now going into something that absolutely has no relevance, that has absolutely nothing to do with the pen, with the question or anything. He does not. Now remember, this guy is a total idiot when it comes to anything scientific. He doesn't even know how to spell graviton, let alone what it is. And yet he's chucking out words to make it look as though he understands all these things. Like Hamza, also this red-beard guy, they don't understand any of this. And yet they're using it like all the time.
Yeah, I've just looked it up here. Can you hear me okay now?
Yep.
Just looked it up here, just for interest for people. In speculative theories of quantum gravity, the graviton is a hypothetical elementary particle that mediates the force of gravitation in the framework of quantum field theory. So I think his attempt use of the word graviton is to put it mildly, misplaced.
Yeah, it's like the Higgs boson distributes the mass to exactly to subatomic particles, and we don't know anything about it. So he's just checking this out like nothing.
Well, I might actually be giving him a bit more credit than you are, because you're saying he's just chucking it out like nothing. I'm kind of thinking he's again trying to lead the conversation, because he starts with gravity, then he goes on to gravitons. So I think he's leading it, you know, like, oh, do you believe in gravity? Okay, now let's go on to something theoretical. And he's being clever. And again, it's so similar. You believe in gravity? Okay, so gravitons. And it's again, it's sleight of hand.
I think
I doubt that he knows this has had anything to do with theoretical theory or anything. It just sounds similar. Gravity and gravitons sound similar, so let's check it in together.
Sleight of hand.
Yeah, I think it's worth.
Or are we inferring gravity due to the effects that gravity shows on objects, on matter? For example,
does he mean gravitons? Where did he say? So do we infer gravity because we can see gravity? Did he mean gravitons then? Did he just slip up?
No. He said, is it that we only infer gravity on the effect it has on objects?
You haven't seen gravity. None of you have seen gravity. What you have seen is the pull, the attraction, an effect of gravity. So let me ask you, do you believe in gravity? And if you do, I want to ask you for the evidence of gravity, because obviously you would not believe in anything without any proof, right? So you believe in gravity like most of the atheists would do. What is your...
I love that. You believe in gravity like most of the atheists would do. Like it's an atheist position, not a theist one.
That's how stupid this is.
And even if we granted the bad language there, it's almost as if he doesn't believe in gravity.
You know,
so if we were to accept...
You know, the thing is, when he said, like, could you prove to me that gravity is real? It's like, I could chuck a stone at you.
Wow.
For gravity.
Well, she failed to answer my question, which was,
no, I'm demonstrating your
I've asked you 3
inconsistency.
times on the camera. You haven't. You're inconsistent.
I'm
Now
demonstrating.
you said that you believe in the pen. Now what's the proof of the pen?
I am just
Before
demonstrating.
you move on to something else, to gravity, explain about the pen.
Clearly, you're not thinking rationally here.
I am.
Oh god, I love that. That is brilliant. I love it. He's trying to do his sleight of hand. He's trying to control it. This bloke in the flat hat, he's not letting it happen. And Mansur, look how annoyed he's getting. look how he's sighing. It's like, you're not being rational. This is just so funny.
And really check how he is avoiding contact completely. The whole body is tense. Everything is turned away from the guy. He's trying to get out of the situation. The body language is screaming, I do not want to be here.
I'm simply demonstrating to you, which is this. If your objection is, how can you believe in something that you cannot see?
There's no proof of.
That you have no proof of.
That's it.
Right. So in principle, if you believe in something which...
Did you check the tried that he was started here?
I'm just kind of wondering if this was the exact body language that priests displayed once the Bible started being translated into local languages.
Rob, did you see what he just tried there? Oh shit, is Rob
think...
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, going through strong.
This was the whole point of this analogy with gravity. What they are trying to do is to say, hey, you believe in something you cannot see. Hey, we are just doing the same. We're just believing in invisible pen and invisible Allah, just like you guys are believing in, quote, gravity. And that's the analogy that is obviously wildly misplaced that he is trying to make here, to make it analogous that we believe things we can't see.
It's not misplaced, it's flat out bollocks.
Okay, let's get to the
no proof, which you cannot see.
We can feel gravity.
Then it's a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale.
We can't see an invisible pen. We can feel gravity. We can experience it. Where's the experience of the pen? Explain.
Listen, things of the unseen you want to see.
Now he's getting desperate.
Because gravity is comparable to a being that exists outside of space and time. What?
So you're going to say, oh, show us heaven and hell.
Yeah, show us the invisible man. You can't.
Wait,
show us the invisible pen.
So you're saying there are things which are in the realms of the unseen, you want to see them. But when we ask you in the realms of the seen world, like gravity, you don't have any evidence, but you
can experience it. What's the experience of the pen?
You experience gravity. I experience the effect of God who has made all of this. So now...
That's amazing. That's amazing. First he says... You accept gravity without seeing it, and then he conflates gravity with God. I mean, I think he's going to look back on this video, and if he just gets a little bit smarter, he's going to be shitting himself, wondering how he's going to explain this to Allah on Judgment Day.
Oh boy!
Where's your experience?
Look, all of this is an effect that the Creator created it. This is the experience.
What's your experience?
I just told you.
This is nature. It doesn't prove Allah.
It's not nature.
You're in nature. Of course you are.
What is nature?
This is nature.
Okay.
Things that evolve naturally.
Okay.
What is nature?
Remember before started the video, and I said, keep in mind my my little. Well, obviously Valhalla exists because I was, you know. This is why. This is why I said keep that in mind.
Yeah, just assert it, and it must be true.
Matter has matter evolved naturally?
Yes.
Then you have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
okay, that statement, you have no idea what you're talking about. Johnny claims that matter evolved naturally, and the response is, you have no idea what you're talking about.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Okay, Rob, explain
like
this.
I
finished my water. I'm now going to get a beer.
This is like a facepalm moment extraordinaire. That he can flat out assert that Johnny knows nothing about what he's talking about because matter comes about naturally. If you look at every, not just one, every scientific hypothesis on the beginning or not of the universe, every single one of them that I've ever come across, holistic explanation based on observations, data, or mathematics. None of them are certain or guaranteed at this moment in time, but not one of them shows matter, in whatever term that is, as if it's coming some other way other than, quote, naturally. In other words, not from a thinking being that creates universes. So this is just,
you know, the interesting thing. I'm watching this video with Mansur and looking at all the logic and the grasps he's making and how he conflates and everything, and it reminds me of a dog that you tie up, You know, like because you're going into a shop or something and you tie the dog up, and the dog at first it's sort of like it's looking about, it's getting a measure of how long the lead is, and some dogs will even test it. Like we'll go just go to the end of it. Okay, I've got a sense of it, and then like we'll walk round the pole, and then they will still think that the leash is the same length that it was before. Only like they don't realize at first that it's wrapped around a pole, and now they can only go a shorter distance. And you can just see dogs like they'll look at it, and it'll be like, "That's funny. I know this lead was longer a moment ago. What sort of black magic is this?" That's all I can think of right now, listening to him.
You completely lost me.
Sorry,
Never mind.
I thought you finished.
Go for it.
Come on, let's see if you know what's matter made of.
You tell me.
I'm asking you the question.
Educate
Come on.
me.
No, I'm asking you the question.
Matter's made of stuff. Can you do better?
This is the scientific level we're talking about. Matter is made up from stuff.
Can you name the stuff it's made of?
I would like you to tell us.
No, I've asked you. I'll put you on the spot. Come on.
Okay, so let's say matter is made of some other stuff. So obviously, you know better than I do, right? Can you educate on us what matter is made of?
You know what it's made of.
He just said. I've just told you. Go ahead.
Other stuff, but he hasn't said what the stuff is.
Yeah,
That's actually quite amazing to me, because he was just mocking Johnny before about, oh, you think that matter evolved? Like, what's it made out of? Other stuff. I mean, he's literally now saying Johnny's position that matter evolved. What's it made out of? Other stuff, and he doesn't even realize. This is brilliant. I love it.
So, quasons, right, it's supposed to be made of. Can you confirm this? Because you already know, didn't you? Quasons, yes.
What is it called?
Quasons, quarks,
Quarks.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Right. So why are you making out you don't know nothing? Now you tell us the rest of the components then.
When did I say I know nothing of?
Just a minute ago, you haven't elaborated on what you know about.
Have I said anything that is incorrect? Isn't matter made of stuff?
Stuff, yeah. But when I said to you, I know it's made of quasons, you said yes.
Look at this. As soon as he feels that he's getting the upper hand again, immediately he turns and confronts the guy. Where before he was doing his utmost not to do that, now he feels, now I've got something here.
So confirming that you did know it, but you didn't want to elaborate any further. Now, elaborate a little bit further. I told you one thing that was in it, all right? And you know what's in the rest, but you know what I mean? You can't explain.
Where did matter come from? Sure, bro. Where did matter come from?
Can you explain the pen first?
No, this is matter.
No, let's get back to the pen.
Listen.
We got to your gravity and matter. Sure. Let's finish off the your evidence for the pen.
The reason I'm saying is there are things which are of the unseen.
Yeah,
if you ask the evidence for the unseen, I will be unable to provide any evidence, because these are the realities of.
And that's the end.
He's apparently comparing this to gravity.
Did you stop at the stops?
Yeah, but he says he's just admitted that there is no evidence for his claim. There is no evidence for the existence of a pen. And that's it. He's just killed himself.
And not only that, he tried to bring up, as we pointed out, the faulty analogy with gravity, saying, hey, if you can't see gravity, then why would you, quote, believe in it? And I think, as we pointed out, there's reasons, and we can produce evidence of the effect of gravity, etc. But like you say, he's now said, no, I'll give you evidence. So, and it's not just a claim about, because the other option that they often bring in is, how do you know your great-great-great-grandmother gave birth to you, and all that sort of nonsense. It's not a mundane claim. It's not a natural claim that we can, accept and go, hey, yes, we've heard of this, or whatever the case is. This is an extraordinary claim. Why would you believe an extraordinary claim when you have no good reasons or evidence to believe it?
So when this bloke talks to someone on a phone or talks on Skype, talks to someone that's not in the same room, I mean, he must think that the messages are being carried back and forth by jinns.
Why would you say that?
I'm just watching the video, mate. I'm just looking at him, listening to his reasoning, and it's like, oh, have you ever seen things like that? Well, I'm assuming that he doesn't actually understand how electronic communication works. So it must be jinns running back and forth, passing on the message.
No, it's stuff. It's stuff doing that.
Yeah, but jinns are made out of fire, which is stuff. Made out of very fiery
Fire
stuff.
is not stuff. Fire is not stuff.
Well, let's hear what
Fire
he says
is
now, how he
poisonous.
the argument
Unseen
after
world. We believe in heaven and hell without seeing them.
And that's it.
is that
So he's like a little boy now, saying, I have an imaginary friend. You can't see him, but he's here because I can talk to him.
the real question is,
I'd love to see.
all we have to ask there, is that faith?
Yeah.
Like the jinns passing messages between us.
I wouldn't ask him, what do you mean by faith? I would just say, I think faith means believing something without good reasons or evidence. Otherwise, you wouldn't use the word faith. You'd say, I believe it, which he kind of did, but I want to know on what is his, why does he believe? On what basis is he believing something? Do you, if your beliefs are true?
I kind of tend to think of because I kind of have a little distinction between faith and belief, because I sort of said what I meant by faith. That's what by belief. I would say that I kind of view faith, as I talk about it, as sort of like a subdivision of belief, sort of like a very strong confidence. But then, like, it's a very strong confidence of something that might not necessarily be true. You know, like if a loved one found like left a suicide note and then didn't hear from him for ages, and he called the police, and it's like, you know, it's like, well, I have a certain faith. I have like a feeling that they're not dead.
I mean, you can use it in different contexts. In the religious context, it's believing things, extraordinary things, with no good reasons or evidence.
No, I said faith, not belief.
Yeah, but I'm saying faith, the way the word faith is used by religious people, although some of them will deny it, is believing extraordinary claims with no good reasons or evidence. Means when they talk about it. Now, they don't accept that because that makes them sound unreasonable, which I think we all know they are, or believe they are, but that's how it would be used in the religious context. Him talking about heaven and
How's that different? How's that different from what I just said?
because you said you had faith in a family member. That's a natural claim. In other words, like you're hoping that a family member would not have committed suicide.
Yeah, but it's like it's like if I have faith, because it's like, no, we're not dead. It's not time yet. There's still so much to do. There's relationships to heal. They're not dead. It's like it's not fate. It's not destiny, and you know, which is kind of irrational, but you know.
Well, you said it. Yeah, the way you've described it there, that would be an unreasonable thing to say. Just because you feel or want it to be the case doesn't mean it is. And you wanting to believe it just because it makes you feel good. I mean, you can do that. The one that we're talking about here in most of these conversations, this foundational question I always ask is, do you care whether your belief is true?
Of course, the really shitty thing is, if you didn't have that faith, you could be sort of like trying to compose yourself and prepare yourself, and the copper's knocking on the door saying, "We've found his body." It might actually be a bit more devastating with that faith that they're not dead.
We are going to see a whole new breed of Muslim apologetics. They're ready now. Okay, great. Bring it on, please, because this is getting simply too embarrassing. Okay, should we carry on?
Go for it.
And how to believe in them. I have my other reasons to believe in them. So what I'm asking you, you are an atheist, self-professed. So can you tell us what is the origin of matter according to your belief?
An atheist is somebody who does not believe. And that's it. That's the definition, okay? I hate the word atheist, by the way. That's why I say I'm not an atheist. But the thing is, if you are, then this is because you don't have this belief, this God belief. And now you're saying not believing something is a belief. Unbelievable.
Dobbs, you need to get
according to this non-belief, sorry?
You need to get some integrity, stop taking the money from the Jews, and just admit atheism is a religion designed by the Jews to corrupt young theists and send them to hell.
Based on this non-belief, you need to believe in matter, in gravity, and in, I don't know, that Earth is a sphere or things like that. That's what you need to believe in due to your religion and the belief of atheism. There you go.
Well, it comes from what's in matter. Now, the origin of matter, nobody knows because it could have always been there.
But you believe in it?
Or it might have just started. Because I can experience matter,
So
yes.
So
I can experience it. So you do know.
No, but you don't know.
No, I do know. Look, matter.
Your point is you don't know. Wrong saying you don't know.
But nobody knows where it comes from.
So how can you claim certainty then?
We know it's there.
Stop. He never claims certainty. This is my pet hate.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing that we need to do with every single Muslim that utters the word absolute or certainty. The first thing I'm going to do now, anybody that does this, what is your definition of knowledge? We'll probably get a blathering non-answer. And for those that actually do, they all virtually use justified true belief, JTB. Nowhere in their definition does it talk about certainty or absolute. So these words just come out here. And again, you know, because it's just a street conversation, but it's a pet peeve of mine. That's why I've taken a bit of time on this. But my first response to anybody says, oh, well, you can't say with certainty. He never claimed it, number one. He isn't even on your definition of knowledge. So stop using that word because it sounds good in your ears and start having a, you know, a decent, accurate conversation here. This is just a red herring sidetrack. There we go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But the thing is that what is interesting is they could feel that Mansur is slowly losing it, that he can't, because the guy is very good at keeping him on track. And they realize that he's losing it, and that's why they now start coming up with other things.
And we don't even understand that knowledge is just the sum of what's known. You know, that's it. It doesn't go into beliefs or anything. It's just what is known. We
need to have a conversation on this, Raven, because I'm not sure that you and I agree on those, but this is not the time for that. Oops, Stops has crashed his mini cam here. I'll send you a couple of videos on this because I think otherwise we're going to talk past each other with this, but I think it'll be useful to listen to a couple of philosophers and experts talking about knowledge and belief. They don't talk about opinion because nobody really uses that word in philosophy. Not that I'm a buff, but I've listened to a number of the experts. So they only talk about knowledge and belief, and there's a big difference.
Because I can experience.
Okay, can you hear what I'm saying?
Yep, you're there.
All right, I'm getting good now at reconstructing everything. The only thing that I'm not good at is finding the position where we were, because I don't know how many minutes this has gone, because it's actually quite a short video. Okay, let's see if I'm here.
Of the unseen world. We believe in heaven and hell without seeing.
No, we were a little bit later than that. Let me jump here. Raven.
I don't have to see the heaven and
hell. No, it doesn't.
That wasn't me. That was Rob belching.
There was. Apologies there.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Don't say no.
But it's
so when you think it's me, you criticise. When you know it's Rob,
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just noticing the difference depending on who it is. You know, oh, Raven. No, it was me. Oh,
well, now you know your reputation.
We know who Stop's favourite is.
All right, carry on. Carry on. Stops.
It's like you're the pampered. It's like you're the pampered son, and I'm like Harry Potter, just locked up under the cupboard.
This is.
Do you know where matter comes from?
He's made the point.
Wait,
do you know where matter comes from?
Wait a point. Yeah. When they say nobody knows, that includes me.
Yeah, right.
How do you now don't know?
Because.
Okay, this is now interesting. Okay, because what is happening is he says. And by the way, is the audio coming later again?
And you know, I'm not necessarily trying to see if it lip syncs with them, but I can hear what they're saying.
Okay, good. I'm going to keep it up because there's so many settings which for some reason it doesn't save. I don't know. Anyway, so where was it? Oh shit, I lost it.
So Mansur asked Johnny, or Ray is another name, the other name he used. He asked Johnny, "How do you know I don't know?" Because Johnny quite right. That comes from, which is correct. Nobody does.
Well, he should. I mean, if he were to be like really correct, he says nobody has to date published anything that would explain it. In other words, nobody has displayed any kind of knowledge or any kind of evidence regarding the origin of matter. That's
nobody knows my soul.
No one can prove it came before the matter. Wait. So you don't know.
Slow down.
You can make a story up.
Do you know the logical fallacy that you've committed here right now? Can you name it?
You tell me.
Right. So you have somehow, you know, extrapolated your ignorance.
Can anyone tell me what extrapolation of ignorance is?
I think reworded, what he's attempting to say is Johnny thinks that because he doesn't know, therefore nobody knows.
Okay, is that an extrapolation?
I wouldn't use the word like that, no. I wouldn't use that extrapolate.
So how can you extrapolate ignorance? If you are ignorant, I mean, this is the funny thing. If you say, I don't know, Mansur is saying this is ignorance. Is it ignorance? Is saying I don't know ignorance? Well, actually it is. Actually, you can say I don't know is because I am ignorant on the topic. Yeah, true.
That's one way of saying it. You could do what Phil says is, we don't know because there's a multitude of hypotheses out there. There's bits of evidence to point in one or other directions, but there's nothing that's overwhelming in one way or the other. So that's another way of saying it. But there's a difference between I don't know and we as human beings don't know. And I think Johnny was saying, Johnny was mixing the two together. I don't know, but also we don't know, which, yeah, is kind of, in this case, I guess one could say it's similar. Whether if he was just claiming I don't know, and yet other people claimed to know and they had evidence, that would be different. But if by what he means is I don't know, meaning that we scientists or we human beings don't know, then that's that part of the statement is correct. But I think it's just a bit muddled, language more than anything else.
It is. It's colloquial. This is the whole point.
Can I just point out that the Quran itself actually says that the Quran that these filthy kuffar deny, the Quran itself says that they lived in a state of ignorance, and look at that, they're proving the Quran right. Look at the wisdom of Allah.
Hang on, ignorance is the stance of knowing something but ignoring it. No.
Ignorance
no, for me, ignorance is not knowing something. Finished.
Correct.
Did someone type that in the chat?
Ignorance and knowledge are exact and almost antithetical. They're the opposite. One is ignorant, one is I know something, or I have knowledge. So you can't say ignorance is.
Or maybe he's saying this is what Mansur thinks ignorance is. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
My faults, you mean?
Listen.
My faults.
Listen.
Yes.
Allow me to make my point.
Yeah, these are my faults. Don't say my ignorance.
Are you going to allow me my point?
Yeah, go on.
When your brothers just say to stop because it's really waste of time, I will stop.
Yeah,
right? I want to demonstrate. Listen.
You're only my fault.
Listen. I am ignorant of millions and zillions of things. What I was only pointing out is this. You made a statement saying, nobody knows. Now, you haven't spoken to everybody to make that.
Nobody's proven it. Scientists have tried to prove it and they can't. People have tried to prove it for thousands of years and they can't.
This is the more correct way of doing it, exactly. So if anybody wants to learn something, if you want to be ultra correct, that is the correct way of saying it.
Tell me where the proof is.
Can you come down and let me make my point, right?
Yeah, go on.
So when you say nobody knows, perhaps, this is not perhaps, it's certainly you don't know, and you are imposing your ignorance on this matter and extrapolating it and imposing on him.
My ignorance about what?
You're not letting me finish.
Matter exists. I'm not being ignorant. You're being ignorant. You're being. Nobody knows the origins.
You don't know.
Do you?
No.
Right. So I'm just being honest. What's your problem?
Yeah, that's two people who don't know.
Yeah, right. No, do you know how to master
7 billion people.
Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Yeah. So we have one person and two persons who knows.
Oh,
so now.
So you tell us how it got in.
Wait. Thank you, brother. So now, when you make a
statement, and let's hear the proof as well.
Please. When you made a statement, nobody knows.
Yeah, they don't.
You have clearly, demonstratably, that was a false statement.
Okay, well, let's
because two people said they know when you said nobody knows.
Right, let's see who proves me wrong. Let's see their proof.
Let's
see your proof first. Please. Come on, prove me wrong.
Listen, calm down and relax and let me make my point.
Yeah, go on.
So, as you made a false statement,
so you say you prove it's false.
Listen.
You have to prove it's false.
You made a claim.
Yeah, but there's matter and nobody knows how it got there.
Listen.
That's yeah. Now you
I
want
want you to think before you respond.
Yeah, go on.
You made a statement.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Now clearly this was a false statement. This stemmed from what? It stemmed from your own ignorance. For example, if I made that statement, nobody knows, I am imposing my ignorance on someone else.
You should back your claims
Who might know? Who might know? It's not backing.
What the fuck does that mean?
This is so terrible.
Wait,
Because
what does that mean?
the non-Muslim says,
if
well,
he
okay,
admits he
if
doesn't
you know,
know,
then tell us how you know and what you know. But he
That's the point,
knows
stop.
he can't. So he carries on talking about the other guy. Well, you made a wrong statement, and now you made a wrong statement, and now you made a wrong statement. And he harps on about this instead of just bringing his own evidence, how he can know the origin of matter.
Absolutely correct there, Stops. I will say, though, that for me, interrupting non-stop here, a little bit frustrating from my point of view as a viewer. So I will point that out. It's not all one way. But at the same time, Mansur made a claim that he and another guy standing in the crowd supposedly know where matter came from. And you're right. That's the question that Johnny should have asked is, well, and he's asking it, but of course Mansur's not answering it. And saying, well, how do you know? If you claim to know, and I'm saying nobody knows, that's based on the best scientific evidence in the world from all experts. But you, Mansur, and you, another man standing here in Speaker's Corner, claim to know where matter came from. Tell us how you know that. Provide your evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Claim it's demonstrating that I am ignorant, but I am imposing my ignorance on someone else. If I said, for example, you know what? Nobody knows who made that camera. It may be that I don't know, but it doesn't mean automatically no one else knows. So when you make statements like this, it's a logical fallacy. You're making a generalization based from your own ignorance.
Not mine. What the world has known. The world has studied matter. And we don't know what come before it. You're the one who's being ignorant here, my friend, trying to make out that I'm ignorant. Right, can you explain how the matter got there then? Or so my statement's
what
false.
you're now doing is, you're shifting the burden of proof.
There we go. Beautiful. This man needs to look in a mirror. He needs to look in a mirror. That is one of his primary tactics, and now he's accusing the other man. He claimed that he knew how matter came around. Johnny's asking, he's now claiming that Johnny is shifting the burden of proof.
Would you explain this whole thing so I can take a loo break?
Yeah, I kind of have there, but Raven, you can join. Go for it. Go take a loo break here.
I'm just looking right where Stops has paused it, and it's like, you know, if that was like, that'd be like, it kind of reminds me of like a picture that the Daily Mail would post of a politician, except better looking.
Well, the other thing that just came to me there was he made a fault. Whenever Muslims make analogies, it's almost always, in my experience, bad, terrible analogies. He made the analogy, oh, just because we don't know who created this camera or where this camera came from, trying to make the analogy, well, we know there's a camera here, somebody must have created it. We know there's a universe, therefore something or someone must have created it. These analogies are terrible. They are fallacies, the equivocation.
You're gonna let him off the hook with saying that because gravity is invisible, heaven exists.
That was an earlier point that he made, but this particular one was talking about the camera. You know, we don't know how the camera was made. Are we going to say that we don't know that it had a maker? No, we're not going to say that. As soon as people make analogies, and he and others do this a lot, it's like, oh my goodness, stop making analogies. You're not helping me. You're hurting yourself trying to make these bad analogies. But the real irony of this entire thing is that he's claiming that Johnny, firstly, it's a false, his claim that Johnny is shifting the burden of proof is false. But the irony is that's exactly what he does, because he made the claim that he and another guy standing there were two guys, at least in the world, that knew how or where matter came from. Johnny's asking him how. He's now claiming that Johnny's shifting the burden of proof. I mean, this can't get any more ironic if you tried.
Okay. Rob?
Continue.
Rob? Hello?
Go for it.
I actually can definitively, 100%, absolutely prove to you where matter comes from.
I'm all ears.
How can you bully me like that? You're actually expecting me to follow through, you monster! Stops, did you see him shifting the burden of proof onto me? The bastard. I've caught you. You recorded.
Okay, I'll continue.
I didn't make the claim. You did.
Yeah, I did. That's right. And you're
So
making
the burden of
claim that
proof
it's
is on
false. No, you're
The
making
one who makes the
Yeah,
claim.
but you're saying it's false, right? So prove it's false.
Because we said we know.
Yeah, right. So,
So
how do you
your
know
statement-
then? So let's hear how you
It's not
know
about-
then. And
It's
let's
not
hear
about
your
how
proof.
we know.
Yeah, how do you
so
know?
now, okay, let's see how we know.
Yeah.
How do we know gravity exists?
No, we're not talking about gravity. We're talking about.
Why are you so afraid to talk about gravity?
Why are you so afraid to talk about gravity?
This is
He's
amazing.
managed to get from the pen to matter, and now he says, "Why are you so afraid of talking about gravity?" I mean, this guy is unbelievably thick.
Yeah, this is painful. I have to be honest. This is painful.
So afraid we was talking about the beginning of the universe
Is
and matter.
gravity part of nature?
We was talking about it. Explain. You're ignorant now because you made yourself look a fool. You tried to make me look like a liar and that I was ignorant.
I never
said there's
claimed you're a
nothing.
liar.
I said you said I was
I'm
ignorant.
surprised.
Okay, you said I was ignorant.
I'm surprised
Right. You're making yourself look a
binary
fool.
way of
aren't you?
thinking. If
You are making
disagree with
yourself look a fool.
Listen,
You've called me ignorant.
Fantastic closing statement. Fantastic closing statement.
Which one?
Flat hat. What is it? Is it Johnny Ray? Yeah, I think you've called him Ray at one point and Johnny at another.
Yeah, somebody calls him Ray, somebody calls him Johnny. So it's Johnny Ray.
Johnny Ray, Johnny Ray. I kind of like Johnny Ray. It kind of seems like a character from a 1950s space comic. Like I can see him doing
There's
a
a
crossover.
cartoon that looks like him, Andy Capp.
I just think like Johnny Ray. I can see him doing a crossover with Flash Gordon.
What was your thing about him? What was you said something about him being a good closing statement. What did you mean?
You know, because like it's obviously this Mansur wants to close it, and Johnny's just like, no, you've tried to make me look like a fool, and it's like, yes, that is a fantastic closing statement. That is just.
Oh, okay.
ignorant. I did not call you ignorant.
You called me ignorant.
I demonstrated that you're ignorant.
Oh,
and
the whole world is
demonstrated
ignorant because they don't know
everyone
where
else-
that's to come from. Now explain why you're the expert and you know. Let's hear it. Come on.
Okay.
Come with this.
First of all,
he said he knows, and he said you know, and he knows. Okay. Look, it does.
I wonder, was that Ahmed whispering in his ear now, giving him some, feeding him some cues? Did you notice this on the left-hand corner?
I don't know who it is. Are you talking about the guy that's holding the camera there in the background?
No. Let me go. Can I go here?
Come on. Okay. Come with this.
First of all,
he said.
I can't go. Can I go back to here?
if
You are making yourself
someone,
look a fool.
listen.
You've called me ignorant. Now explain why I'm ignorant.
I did not call you
Listen,
ignorant.
you called me ignorant.
I demonstrated that you're ignorant.
Oh,
and
the whole world is
demonstrated
ignorant because they don't know
everyone
where
else-
that's to come from. Now explain why you're the expert and you know. Let's hear it. Come on.
Okay.
Come with this.
First of all,
he said he knows, and he said you know, and he knows.
Who's that?
You still there, Stops?
Who's that?
Who's who?
The guy on the
Oh,
left.
in the left there, whispering in his ear, and I can't see. I can't make out who that is.
Look, it doesn't matter. Let's hear your proof. Let's hear your proof proving that I'm ignorant.
right.
Come on.
Brother. First,
Come on.
first point is this.
You can't prove that what I'm
You know,
saying.
you know what I want to talk?
Yeah. You've had talk a
You
load of
interrupt.
rubbish. Yeah, because you're talking. You haven't.
So
you
now
haven't proven anything.
Okay, now, are you recording this? I am talking a load of rubbish.
You are.
And yes, he's so interested in recording me.
Prove that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Look at
then.
this.
You
Look
said
at the quality
you're
of your channel.
Yeah, you're the one that said. You know where matter come from. No, you stay out of it. So explain where it come from.
Now, I
you
want
was the
to-
big man saying I know.
Listen.
So let's hear it. Where does matter come from?
Sure. So now I am just making a side point, right? Which is this.
It is remarkable how he makes side points all the time and never actually addresses the main point.
I kind of like that skinny lad, you know, right in front with the sportswear. Looks like he's got some jogging bottoms and he's got like a grey zip-up jumper and a red shirt underneath. He's watching this. He's just standing there in the background with a massive grin on his face.
Putting faces. Yeah, I saw that.
You're so interested in recording me and filming.
He says, and he walks off.
When I talk a load of rubbish. That is a demonstration of the quality of your channel. Because
you're talking rubbish now because you're accusing me of ignorance, but you're not explaining.
Listen, can I finish my point?
He's not explaining, mate.
If you cut me off in the middle, that is called rude, isn't it? Thank you. So, you show interest in filming someone.
Yeah.
Who's he talking to? Does he have an evil eye, like squinting or what?
He's talking to another Muslim, and he's just not giving Johnny the courtesy of looking in his eyes, or what? I don't know.
Maybe it's
decent debate. So
and you are interrupting me again. Right. Brother, thank you.
I don't know. It doesn't mean I'm ignorant. That's a definition of ignorance. We don't know. Look. I know he's got his coat on. Now, if I said I knew where he bought his jacket from, I don't know. But it doesn't mean I'm ignorant.
You're ignorant of that.
Right. So he's saying he knows where it comes from. Then, right, hold on. Right. So you said you know where matter comes from. Where does it come from? Right, can you prove God? Can you? Well, people have been searching for God for thousands of years and they can't find him. So where's the proof? They've proved they can't find him. Well, where's your proof of matter? There's no proof of God. There's no proof of God or flying angels. Right.
Yep. Sounds like Ahmed from The Voice.
Where's your proof? Matter. Yeah, it's been tested.
I would have said your particular version of your particular God.
Yeah.
It's been tested. It's been tested. Yeah. What? Well, electrons. You can see electrons on YouTube. What? Lightning is not an electron. Lightning. A single electron. Electric is lightning. I can see thousands of them. Electric lightning. Yeah. Where? In lightning.
That clearly demonstrates his knowledge of the natural world.
I'm a liar. What? Lightning hasn't got electrons in it.
Yes. Okay. Yes. You know what? Sorry. Let us spend another 5 minutes to demonstrate to his viewers why he's not giving that.
Right. Let's see your proof of the matter. So you said God's your proof. Right. There's no proof of God. So you haven't proved.
Okay. So somebody in the chat said
the video from his point of view, and it was actually Ahmed. Yeah.
Yes. I was just reading the same thing. Stops. Yeah.
Where did it say?
I think Johnny's gone slightly off track here now. He's talking to somebody else and sidetracked here.
Yeah, he's too excited.
5 minutes, maximum 5 minutes.
He hasn't proved God, so he can't prove
now, brothers.
Let's do a time.
No, not time.
Right, let's see your proof.
I'm going to leave in 5 minutes, so remind me when it's over, right?
Okay, let's see your proof.
I spent enough time.
So you know how the matter got there. Let's see how it got there.
Allow me to finish my point that I was about to make earlier, and you
rudely
interrupted.
Why I'm ignorant and you're not. You're being ignorant because you ain't.
Do you know that the video stopped?
Sorry? Can you hear me? Say again?
I said, do you know the video stopped?
Just started because I can experience.
Do I know the video?
The video just stopped and now it's come on again. And I was like, well, everyone was quiet. So I'm just like, do you know it stopped? Because
yeah, it's crashed because I can see here the message, video has crashed.
Okay.
I need to tell Microsoft about this.
Yeah, I was probably meaning Cam.
You're going to get on the phone to Bill Gates.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, let's see how we know.
Yeah.
How do we know gravity exists?
No, we're not talking gravity. We're talking about.
Why are you so afraid to talk about gravity?
You're so afraid. We was talking about. Right. So you said you know where matter comes from. Where does it come from?
That clearly demonstrates his knowledge of the natural world.
I'm a liar. What? Lightning hasn't got electrons in it.
Yes. Okay. Yes. You know what? Sorry. Let us spend another 5 minutes to demonstrate to his viewers.
I can't go forward on this thing. I don't know. This program is starting to irritate. Now I managed.
Because you ain't explaining how you know the matter got there. So let's hear it. Come on.
What's your name?
All the way through.
What's your name?
Doesn't matter. All the way through. All the way through.
Doesn't matter.
All the way through. Yeah. And what is the matter? What is a unit of energy?
Right.
It does, because without the watts, which is a unit of energy,
You know what?
yeah, there's no
So,
nothing.
to continue, if he interrupts, as I am explaining, that will be the end of discussion, right? Do you agree?
Yeah, explain how the matter got there.
Okay.
Yeah, he hasn't explained.
We all agree.
It's difficult.
Listen, brother, 1 second.
And not explaining nothing.
Listen.
All he's doing is calling me an ignorant, but he ain't explaining.
Here is the
his
rule
version.
that I'm going to adopt. The moment he interrupts me from making my point.
Now this is this is like saying I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to tell the waiter to bring me a beer. Now I've made a prediction when he comes and brings me a beer. I mean, he's been interrupting constantly over the last 15 minutes. Of course he's going to interrupt. So it's a bit funny. But this is exactly the way out, what Raven was just saying. He's looking for a way out, and this is it.
The end of the discussion.
Right, let's see what this point.
Yeah. Okay, we agree.
Let's see the point.
Okay. So as I was explaining earlier on, you state that I speak a load of rubbish. And you want to fill me so desperately.
You've proved it.
That's
you can walk off. Yeah, you've proved it.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate at the end there. Johnny got a little bit emotional, I think, and it wouldn't let him say a word. He didn't need to. Mansur had already sort of said enough. And that's why I let people speak. I mean, everybody's got a different approach, but I let them speak so that they can dig their own hole, because otherwise you don't allow them to fully dig the hole. You know, what Johnny was good at was keep asking him to prove where matter came from, keep asking you about proving where the pen came from. Both of those were good things to do. But I think then Johnny took it to the extreme of would not allow him to say another sentence. I want them to say it all, because then we can criticize it. Then it's out there for everybody to see. I think if you interrupt all the time, then the other guy doesn't get a chance to speak. So it depends. Everybody's got a different way of doing it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, everybody watching, please give us a thumbs up, even if you didn't like it. Come on, do it now.
Yeah, do thumbs up if you want us to do more of these. Let us know if you want more. We have got other ones here. Stops has got other ones.
Do you want another one, or how long have you been going? I don't even know.
1,000 thumbs up and Rob will give a nip slip.
A little over an hour.
We call it a nip dip in South Africa.
What other videos have you got? How long are they?
So you call like a cheeky nip slip, you call it niplets?
No, it's a nip dip.
A limp dip.
A nip dip.
A limp dip.
When you pay for the drink for the girl, she has to dip her nipple in the drink.
It's falling down my shoulder and I've accidentally flashed my titties. Is that so? You call that a limp dip?
No, I said it's doesn't matter. It's a nip dip. It's when you pay for the drink for the girl and then you get to lick it off.
Right. So PDF Dave said in the comments here, and he's probably right, the Muslims exploit politeness. So if you allow them to finish, there's also that they go on. So I suppose it's a case of finding a balance, and that's not always easy to do. But we have got another video. We'll see how long we went. I saw part of this video, I think.
Okay, this is called "What's an Atheist Moral Anchor?" and it's by E.F. Dawa. And I'm trying to get out of the stupid habit that they have now, is where they show you endless trailers,
my moral
and you
anchor
don't even
is
know
fixed.
when
That's why
this
it's called
whole
an
thing is
anchor.
starting.
It doesn't change. I have a standard that I can use anywhere I go in the world.
Sometimes you have to change, don't you?
No.
Sometimes,
no.
Sometimes society changes. Look,
no,
you're standing tonight, Hamza,
with me. Change me, mate.
You're with me, and we're talking there, right? But we're standing, as we said before, at the place of execution, okay? We no longer execute on the Tyburn Street.
Stop, I can't hear a word you're saying.
Because we have a vote.
That's drowning you out.
35
Yeah, you've got to stop it. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Society, we saw the hand drawing and quartering.
What that is, what you've just said now. Well, if this is true, why do we celebrate hand drawn and quartering Guy Fawkes every November?
Because we're symbolising,
we're celebrating
a historic issue to do with the Catholic.
You're celebrating the murder of a man who was hung, cut open, had his intestines pulled out while he was alive, and then cut to pieces. Yeah, and you celebrate it every year, and you encourage your children to celebrate it every year.
But Catholics are welcome.
Sorry about that. I thought, we're over like a minute 13 into the video, and we're still in the trailers. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, I don't do this on my videos. I think they've got this from somewhere. Now they're all doing it. This is a waste of time for me. I will never put in this sort of thing. It's supposedly there to get people interested that I watch the video. If people are interested in watching this, they know what it's about. They don't need this extra 2 minutes of nonsense in the beginning.
I do love that though, as if you're actually taking your children to sort of give some ISIS style training to celebrate a man being drawn and quartered. You know, as if it's not actually about fireworks and candy floss and a bonfire. And Jesus, what a stupid thing to say.
Okay, let's get to this stuff because it's going to come up again.
Okay.
Remember the 5th of November.
It's very cold here tonight, isn't it? We have got. Let's go.
Is it just soft for me, or is it soft for you too?
We can hear it.
Because for me, it's rather soft. Okay, is it better?
All right.
I just want to say something to you, Hamza, right? What I'm saying is you and I will have a common denominator between us from our human side, yeah? So if you say to me, Ian, I think it's ridiculous that people get drunk and they do you know, I'm going to say I agree with you, because I have seen the problems of drink in my family, and some of my friends have died of alcoholism, so I'm with you. I am your best friend on that. When it comes to issues of drugs, I totally agree with you. Paedophilia, abuse, bullying, everything. You'll be surprised, right? Gambling as well. I'm not a gambler. I once saw these guys in Leicester Square. They said, "Where you go to the casino?" I said, "You're joking, mate."
Sexual immorality?
I'm against all of that. Quite close. Now, hang on a minute. That doesn't mean because I didn't believe in your religion or whatever that we're not got that common denominator. I've got it.
Interest.
Hang on.
Usury.
Oh, usury. Well, now we're getting to a good one, because it depends how you class usury. If you would class usury maybe from the point of monetary extortions and all sorts of things, and loan interest. I know what you're talking about. For me, loan interest has worked for me within my life. That's the way I am, because I've been in that business. So I would find that probably okay. You may not. I get it. What I'm saying is, you and I could quite easily have a proper conversation about the two of us as human beings, and that's what I'm saying. Our histories or whatever, it doesn't matter. As two really nice human beings together.
Right. One more minute. Go on.
Hang on. I would agree with you on a lot of things, but it's not because you're a Muslim or I'm an atheist or whatever. It's just because we have that human common denominator.
Let me just explain something. What I see here is somebody who's sucking up to the Muslim, who's trying to be as nice and as I don't know, as accommodating as is humanly possible. And Hamza is going through all the things. Well, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? As though these things are virtues, as though these things are goals that you should aspire to. And I don't understand, like, he doesn't say slavery. This is something that he leaves out for some reason. And this is where I would go. And I don't know why this guy is bending over backwards to please Hamza. Does anybody also see this thing, this effect?
Well, yeah. And I think part of the reason is Ian's a nice guy. His sort of style is rhetoric. So that's his sort of approach when he has conversations, which is his approach. That's all good. But because Hamza's got a bullying style in Speaker's Corner, so I think what he's attempting to do is mitigate that bullying style and say, "Hey, Hamza, we're buddies. We're two guys to try and get away from the bullying style." But that's Hamza's style. It's not going to work, as you'll see further on in the video anyway.
Okay, I prefer Hitchens. I'm your enemy.
If you want to suddenly go, oh, it's because I'm a Muslim I'm doing these things.
It is.
What are you doing differently that I'm not doing as an atheist that you're doing?
Recognizing God exists.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Doing. We're talking about actions. We're talking about things that you do as a human being in everyday life. And believing something is not part of that.
And so, coincidentally enough, he said that right after you mentioned Hitchens. Remember that challenge Hitchens had? Name me one thing you as a religious person, one moral action.
Yeah.
I'm not. Of course, there was that pastor that said, what about tithings? But, yeah.
No, so
the most thing that you hear is, what about prayer? This is quite stupid. Anyway, but what I can't understand is that he lets him get away with it because Hamza is not giving you actions. He's not telling you things which he asks, what are we doing differently? He says, no, come on, believing God exists. How is that beneficial for anyone? It's not. It's just a cop-out. It's just a fairy tale. That's it.
Yeah, you're right. It's a cop-out. It's believing in something with no good reasons or evidence. They'll claim good reasons and evidence, but they just don't have any.
Maybe Hamza would actually get a smile on his face if when he mentioned sexual morality, Ian just mentioned, we can have a walk to the local gay club, try whipping them. We could do it together. It'll be a bonding experience. Of course,
God,
I mean, if it's a certain type of gay club, then I might enjoy it.
My best friend is a black sermon. What, mate? Come on, you are sick. My best friend is a black sermon.
Right. Following God's guidance in all of my life, in every aspect.
Which I don't. Makes sense.
All right, in my social actions, in my family, and all of this. All right.
But that's not true. That's not true right there. He's bragged as if it's a virtue that he chose Islam over his child and the mother of his child. I mean, I'm fairly certain that's not actually an Islamic tenet. You're still supposed to look after your kids, even if Islamically they're illegitimate, unless unless they marry someone else, in which case they'll have to wear a hijab around you because you can Islamically fuck your own daughter because she's not Islamically yours. But of course, that's a whole different kettle of incest.
Yeah, but you notice that he said that he follows all of God's laws. Well, presumably he doesn't follow the one about slavery, about punishing apostates, etc. So he's selective about, quote, what laws he does follow.
And that's exactly the point that I always make. He's better than his God, but he doesn't know it and he doesn't admit it. And then the funny thing is, all the time he's asked, can you give me something that you're doing, one of the actions that you can do, which differentiates you from me? And all the time he doesn't. And then he says, well, all the actions with my family. Okay, I would have jumped in there. Okay, name one. He doesn't.
Yeah, and I think I would, the Hitchens quote, I think I would modify slightly because Hitchens' quote was, name for me a moral action or statement made by a believer that could not be made by an unbeliever. And I would add to that the unbeliever would also agree is moral, because they will bring up things that they claim is moral, either amoral or immoral. And so that statement needs to be qualified. Maybe he did. I've not seen him ever qualified other than to say, maybe
is anyone there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm talking. I can stop. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Evan's just out of it there. So yeah, I modify that.
Hello?
Go for it.
So you've qualified it to include that. I qualify it to say not only that is moral, that is beneficial for mankind.
Okay,
because they always come up with this prayer thing.
Do you need to add the beneficial? Because if something is, if the believer and us could agree that something's moral, and they could show that they were the only people who could do it based on the fact that they believed in God or something like that, then we'd have to agree, have something that we don't. As yet, I've never heard that. Because prayer or tithing, let's use prayer as an example. I don't think that's a moral thing to do. So I would never agree that that's a moral statement.
Yeah, no, both things end up the same way. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
What God teaches me is a benefit to me, and everything I see that has been prohibited by God or I've been warned away from, I see other people becoming victims of. So,
yes, I am also a victim of the Vienna Schnitzel.
My life, I haven't had a problemed life. So what have I done? Why am I not being punished for not being, for example, a Muslim?
Well, because we're told.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm a good person. Forget the old before. That's just human.
Okay. First of all,
I'll apologise for that.
Unfortunately, you're not your own judge to determine whether you're good or not, unless you're.
Well, I believe I am. I have to use my intuition.
You have to. We have to have criteria to measure.
Before I might have thought I was a bit silly. You and
what's your standard of right and wrong?
My standard of right and wrong is to treat people around.
No, what's your standard? What's your moral anchor?
My moral is to love my family, to protect my family, to...
No, what's your moral anchor? What's the source of your moral anchor?
The source of my moral anchor is from my family and my interaction with the world, how I've learned from bad and good, and sometimes I've gotten wrong, so I get slapped.
No, but if it's moral anchor, so for example, what's your views on homosexuality?
My views...
Yeah, this is the point. he's actually doing the same thing. He's also saying, okay, I need you to use the word anchor. I need you to accept the word anchor before we continue. So he's sort of putting that into the conversation so that Ian accepts the word anchor so that he can then later go and refer to it. Well, you've accepted that it's an anchor. And this is exactly what he's doing now. And this is, I would always immediately ask, what do you call a moral anchor? There is no such thing as a moral anchor. But now he's accepted it. Well, now he's done.
Homosexuality is, from a personal point of view, I am not a homosexual, so it goes against what I believe for my natural order. However, as a human being within this society, being really open with you, I will be totally tolerant under my pretense that I do, as a person, I believe a live and let live philosophy.
Okay.
I haven't got a problem.
So you think homosexuality?
I'm not a homosexual. I don't know whether so I can't say whether homosexuality is an illness within someone, as people might say, or is it just that's the way they are? Because I'm not one, so I can't clarify that. I have to.
No, but you can have an opinion on it.
I have.
And no, he does not say that homosexuality is okay. This is. This makes me so angry when they go and they try and summarize it by twisting it so that you are saying it sounds as though you said something which you didn't even say.
Yeah, but that's, as you know, that's one of Hamza's specialties. He did it with Phil to the point where Phil had to call him out on it. So he will summarize or mis-summarize whatever point you are trying to make to sound like you are saying this. Oh, so what you're saying is no. And that's the immediate sign that someone is being very uncharitable. They're trying to take the worst, if not a completely incorrect interpretation of what you are saying. But this is obviously not a rule of conversation that some people have looked into, know about, or care about for whatever reason.
Opinion, and I'm saying I accept it.
Now, I guarantee you, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have accepted it. 20 years ago, I'd say.
Possibly, if I'm being really honest.
No, that tells me your moral anchor is society and what it accepts and what it doesn't.
But that's how we evolve the society.
All right,
now.
but my moral anchor, my moral anchor is not set to man's changing his moral values.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
Exactly. What is he on about? Of course it is. I mean, it's very easy to, again, he is better than his God because he doesn't do what the Quran tells him that is okay. And that's it. So I don't know why it's so difficult for some Muslims to go and accept this and understand this.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would actually ask, like in this situation, I would actually say, like, just for an example, because he's going on about moral anchor and this is from my God, I'd be like, okay, so imagine that. So actually, no, forget the whole imagine thing. I'm walking through London. It's about midnight. I'm hungry. I see a street vendor, and I've got the choice between a hot dog and a burger. One is halal, one is haram. Now, are you actually going to say that whether or I choose the hot dog or the burger is actually a moral choice? That if I choose the hot dog, this is an act of evil, and if I choose the burger, then he's seriously going to say this is a moral choice? No, of course it's not. It's ridiculous. It's just, what do I fancy? It's like, you know, I'm hungry. What do I fancy, a hot dog or a burger? If you were to say to me, whether you choose the hot dog or a burger, this is actually a moral choice, I'd call you at best an idiot, at worst insane. And there's nothing that they could do to refute that because they know how stupid they would look. And it also just sort of it pokes that little hole in his argument that I might be able to use to get through.
And there's a difference, though, between a preference and a moral act.
Yeah, because he's saying it's actually an anchor and it's unchanging, things like that. And you know, the whole basis is it's not actually ethics as we understand it. It's just the rules. The rules are this and that, and they interpret the rules as right and wrong instead of actually being an ethical source. It's stuff to live by. If I treat it that way, then I can say, okay, so from your understanding, whether or not I choose the hot dog or the burger, this should be an act of morality because halal is good and haram is evil, according to your God, according to the argument you've just made. Are you seriously going to say to me that if I have a hot dog over a burger, I'm committing an act of evil, that this is a moral choice? And I've yet to meet a Muslim who would actually say, yes, it is a choice of good and evil.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that's a good example to bring that out with. But the question, the killer question that needs to be asked of him or anybody else is get them to say that it's a God, because that's what they want to say anyway. Just lead them to, well, how do you know? Well, my God tells me. And then you ask the killer question that other atheist asked, that Stops did I think he did a video on it that we all saw with Muhammad Hijab, who ended up just being all over the show. The atheist asked him, how does God know what God knows is good? That's the question to ask. Now, that's a little bit of a roundabout question, but essentially, on what basis does God know that God knows what God knows is good? And if the person cannot answer that question, as 2,000 years of philosophy has told us, then it's arbitrary. That goes back to Plato and Socrates and all that sort of stuff. Otherwise, whatever God says, it's just God's decision and it's arbitrary. But they want to claim that arbitrary, they don't know it or even would accept it, but arbitrary is obviously not objective. Just because it's a powerful being does not mean that it's objective. They will obviously claim that because he's all-powerful and all-knowledgeable, therefore whatever he decides is in fact objective. And obviously the rest of us don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Anchor is fixed. That's why it's called an anchor. It doesn't change.
Excuse me, you can lift an anchor, put it somewhere else. It's just there. He's doing the exact opposite. It's exactly the opposite. An anchor is supposed to ground you where you are at that moment, and that's so stupid.
I have a standard that I can use anywhere I go in the world.
Sometimes you have to change, don't you?
No.
Sometimes
no.
No, Mr. Hamza, you are very, very wrong. Because what you are doing, what your moral anchor is, you cannot do wherever you go on this planet. Because if you go and you hack somebody's hand off in Britain, you're going to be in deep shit. Whereas if you do it in Saudi Arabia, you might well get away with it. That's why raping a Filipino maid in Jeddah and Riyadh or something, you can get away with. If you do the same thing in the UK, you don't. So no, I'm sorry, that does not work.
So does it not work for Hamza's...
The way that it's allowed in Islam, you will not get away with it in Germany or Austria or something. That doesn't work. He's such an idiot.
So is you saying that it doesn't work for Hamza's specific moral anchor, or that moral anchors don't work full stop?
Society changes.
No,
you're standing
doesn't change me, mate.
Islam, sorry, his moral anchor of Islam and apply that anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, but there's an easier way to answer that as well, Stops, and that's just to say, can you today, anywhere in the world, take women and children as slaves after a battle?
Yes.
Any battle, anywhere. Now, they will justify that that was the best thing to do at the time. Is there any Muslim society that accepts that today?
Yes.
That you can take slaves apart from ISIS? And unless you're going to accept ISIS as representative Muslims, you have to say no, which scotches this point.
Yeah, good point. Yes, I agree. That's, I thought there was another comment.
With me, and we're talking there, right? But we're standing, as we said before, at the place of execution, okay? We no longer execute on the Tyburn tree and whatever.
Right.
Why? Because we have evolved as a society. We saw the hand drawing and quartering.
No, what that is, what you've just said now. Well, if this is true, why do we celebrate hand-drawn and quartering Guy Fawkes every November?
Because we're symbolising...
We're celebrating
a historic issue to do with the Catholic...
You're celebrating the murder of a man who was hung, cut open, had his intestines pulled out while he was alive, and then cut into pieces.
Yeah,
and you celebrate it every year. And
I would have jumped on him right there. Like, he follows a religion which he justifies the murder of non-believers by accusations of treason. And it is no.
But that's
the biggest celebration in Islam. It's the Eid where they go and celebrate the sacrifice of a child.
And the ground is awash with the blood of the lamb.
But even separately from that, he's misrepresenting any of us, well, certainly me in the UK anyway, that celebrates Guy Fawkes Day. You celebrate the fireworks.
5th of November.
Represent the potential blowing up of the
Parliament
that was stopped.
Yeah.
Nobody, find me a single person in the UK that celebrates it on the reason he's given. So again, this is a complete red herring, straw man. The people celebrate Guy Fawkes because we're celebrating somebody who's hung, drawn, and quartered. Nobody celebrates that.
I do wonder if in this country there's some like rabid, batshit crazy Protestant that thinks the Catholic Church is evil that actually does celebrate the murder of a Catholic. I mean, you might have to go to America to find them. I wonder if there's even one in the UK. That'd be interesting.
Encourage your children to celebrate it every year. Right. Now, for me, that's immoral. Right. See, ISIS have nothing on what Christians in this country did. Right.
I mean, how deluded do you need to be, and what kind of a monster do you have to be to make that statement?
It's not just that, though. I mean, do you ever notice how, like, the more fundamental someone gets in Islam, the more they have to purge themselves of their own culture? It's like, you know, that black lad, Zachariah. You know, 6 months ago he was a Christian, and now he's like he's a black man, and he's dressing like he was born in the Gulf. It's
but wasn't that a publicity stunt?
Oh, I don't. Are we thinking the same one? That one that was calling Shias kufr?
Yeah, but wasn't he a Muslim? Then he became a Christian. Now he's back to Muslim, and he's running around in the winter clothing of Arafat.
I don't know, but yeah, have you actually noticed that? Like the more settled into Islam you get, the more you sort of project your own culture. I mean, it's like if you look at, because I just mentioned. Wait, no, I didn't. For some reason, I'm thinking Somalia, but I've got no idea why I'm thinking Somalia. But okay, I'll just take Somalia as an example. You know, like 50 years ago, they very much blended their own culture with Islam. The way that they dressed, they blended it with Islam. It was like very distinctive Somali scarves that they might wrap around themselves. And now it's just like it's like they're trying to purge themselves of everything Somali and just pretend that they're Saudis.
But if you and I know.
And you see that so often with converts, like when it gets so fundamental, it's like they will try to change, like try to distance themselves or almost purify themselves from the very culture and society they come from, and just try to pretend that they're Arab. It's incredible.
Because I like it, this is what I'm saying to you. I apologise if there was any manner issue. I didn't mean that. I was getting late for you. I'm going to start. So I'm starting again with you now. I'm being sensible. I want to have a chat with you next time when it's daylight as well. But for example, if you and I had that battle, I don't know, in 1600, I'd have probably drawn my sword. You'd have drawn yours, and I'd be going like this to your.
Oh dear, Stops has crashed again. Sorry guys, Stops has, the Minicam, the Windows version of Minicam has stopped again or crashed. Hopefully, I might try it next time.
This is crazy.
My moral anchor is fixed. That's why it's called an anchor.
Sorry, I need to now find
change.
the place again where we were.
I have a standard that I can use anywhere I go in the world.
Sometimes you have to change, don't you?
No.
Sometimes society changes. Look,
no,
you're standing tonight, Hamza, with me.
I need to first pause this, then I can click on this. And then I need to.
Because I know it's common sense not to drink yourself to death.
Do you have children?
Yes, I have.
Do you tell her not to drink?
Do I tell her not to drink?
Yeah.
Yes, we don't encourage it.
No, do you tell her not to?
No,
you don't.
She's too young at the time. So
how old is she?
She's 7. So.
Oh, you're only 7. You look too old to have a kid of 7.
I had it later in life.
How old are you?
I'm 50 old.
50 what?
Does it matter?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. No, okay. I'm interested.
So where you are?
I'm interested.
I'm 57.
I'm interested.
I'm 57. I had my child at 50.
Yeah,
that's personal.
I'm interested though.
No, I don't know. Do you know why? Because I asked him questions. That's fine.
I wouldn't ask him questions like that.
Yeah, but everyone's their own person.
Yeah, you're going a little bit.
No, he's not going.
Well, how old are you?
You know what?
I'm 75.
You see, alhamdulillah, I'm 44. No secrets.
No, it's not a problem to me, and he should respect
Well,
me.
you happen to tell me your age, you didn't care.
My kid.
In fact,
my kids are older than me.
In fact, is it true, guys?
70. My father's 72.
No,
I'm 75.
it's true, guys, that we actually started our initial discussion about asking each other's history, so don't worry about it.
But anyway, I'm going to go eat now, so forgive me. So I'm going to make my excuses and leave.
Hamza, be well.
You said to the kid there, the girl, right, about the Bible.
Yes.
That about belief.
Yes.
But yet you believe.
Yes.
This is a reference to a video which he made where he was talking to a medical doctor who was or whatever a Christian, and they had a discussion which is quite interesting, which I also want to make a video on because it's so simplistic.
The Qur'an.
Yes. Yes.
But what's the difference?
Okay, the Bible.
And I know that you're going to say.
He said his buys. He said he's going to go eat, and he says he's going to leave now. Cheers, bye, and then he starts talking again.
Christ.
No.
And the Father.
No.
Oh, go ahead then.
But see, before you could talk about Christ and the Father.
You know, as soon as he said I was going to eat, I would love it if someone walked by munching a hot dog.
You need to qualify the Bible's reliable. See, the Bible's not reliable. It can say what it likes.
So is the Quran.
No. If the Quran's reliable.
But it has been, both books have been changed. Because,
really?
Yes, you know that, and I know that.
Change what in what way?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know. I don't know.
No, but you just made a claim, man.
Yeah, but I know you can't, the prophet, it came from the prophet Gabriel.
No.
Right, no? Well, you say that what's the prophet Muhammad had got this
revelation from
the angel Gabriel. That's what you.
Well, that's the agent.
Yes.
For me, the angel Gabriel between Muhammad and God. Yeah.
Right, but you know today.
I know what.
That was just a hearsay.
If it was.
Well, it has to be.
Why?
Because he didn't see the angel Gabriel.
How do you know?
Well, how do you know he did see it?
Well, you said he didn't.
Not okay. Well, I said that it was because what he said, I heard the words of the angel Gabriel.
No, he didn't say that.
It did say that.
He didn't even mention angel Gabriel.
Well, he said he heard the words. He had those words from the angel Gabriel.
He said he had a supernatural encounter in the cave.
So it was all third party.
So it was.
It's not God speaking. It's.
Has anybody watched this? Should we continue with this?
I'm just kind of looking at the background and thinking I want to go on the rides
because this is incredibly boring.
It's a party in this, isn't it? It's
Yes.
always like someone said something happened.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's always my dispute with religion, that it's a third party.
So it's
a third party.
thing.
So you don't believe history taught by third
If
party?
you say in the beginning God created the heaven and earth, it's not saying in the beginning I created
we believe
the
Muhammad had a
heaven and earth.
supernatural
That's
experience in the cave. We believe Muhammad had a supernatural experience in the cave, and later on
So it's a third party then, isn't it?
What does that mean?
It means his man's speaking.
Does that mean it didn't have an
Because
encounter in the cave?
today, you know that if you hear words, if you go to court and you hear words that you say that I heard this say.
We know it's my history.
Aren't words testimony in a court of law as evidence?
Huh?
Aren't words used as evidence in a court of law?
But not hearsay.
What do you mean hearsay?
Because that's what Muhammad done.
Why hearsay?
It was all hearsay.
Who told you that?
Well, because he then.
Okay, if let's imagine it did happen.
No.
Let me ask you a question. If it did happen this way, how could the story have been told? If it did happen that way, how else would you expect it?
But that's what I'm saying. He can come down and say anything.
No. Let's say an angel did come to Muhammad. Let's say an angel did come to Muhammad. Let's say it did. All right, it did. How would the history record that? How would Muhammad have relayed that information any differently?
Right now, how then? So you're saying that he could have
written a story just like that.
He couldn't have made a mistake in writing the Quran.
I'd have written the same story.
What are you on about?
Well,
I said to you a very simple point.
You'd have written the story.
Let's just say you're saying because only Muhammad tells what happened in the cave. Okay, it's hearsay. Okay,
it's hearsay.
Right now, if that thing did happen in the cave, how would that have been relayed any differently?
What do you mean? How would it?
How would you know?
Okay, can we stop this for a sec? What the fuck is he on about?
He said, imagine if it happened, how could it have been any different? He thinks he's making a fundamental, profound pain point here.
And apparently he'd go to court and say that was like a witness testimony, but so that some bloke walked out of a cave and said, when I was in a cave,
The question to ask anybody is, Hamza, if somebody came to you and claimed they had seen Jesus on a cross today in 2017, and he spoke to them and told them that he was the Son of God, would you believe it? It's the same thing. Nobody else was around. I saw you.
Because it's even worse than that. Because if you actually did find someone on a cross, I mean, let's say that you were I don't know, anywhere, you might have actually seen someone nailed to a cross. You know, maybe there's some religious fanatic or something. I actually find the idea that you randomly come across some nut job that's nailed themselves to a cross more believable than some bloke comes out of a cave rambling about supernatural experiences.
Yeah, because you can easily go and say, let us assume that Jesus Christ was nailed to the cross. Can you think of any different way that it would have been narrated to us? There you go. It's true.
It could have been nailed to an X.
Well, the biggest problem here is somebody's making a claim that they spoke to an angel or whatever the case is. Obviously, we all know that he didn't know who he was speaking to. He had to be told who he was speaking to. But it's hearsay in the sense that it's an extraordinary claim. Nobody else saw it. There was no other evidence. Would any court of law accept that?
How does he not understand that it is hearsay?
For example, in some other way that the Muslims would never accept and go, hey, it's exactly the same. Or tell me how it's different.
It's just talking. It's ludicrous.
I mean,
yeah.
Hearsay is not necessarily the truth.
Could it be the truth?
It could be.
It could be.
It's always.
All right. So how would you determine if it's true or not?
By facts.
How would you determine that in the 6th century?
In the 6th century.
I'll leave you with something to think about.
The 6th century was
I'll leave you with something to think about.
Where people would probably believe it.
Let me leave you with something to think about, if you don't mind. Because I'm going to go now, yeah? But let me leave you with this to think about.
In the 6th century, they would have thought of things a bit differently than we do in 2017 Britain. But anyway, what I think is...
don't begin because I'm going to leave.
No, they were open only for belief.
I'm not beginning because he's going to leave.
No, not because he's going to speak, I'm going to leave. Because I'm going to leave anyway. So there's no start to open a big dialogue because I won't be able to honour it because I'm leaving.
All week and I've got
Here's something to think about. Why did the people of the time of Muhammad, when he came with this verse of the Qur'an, believe it was supernatural? That's why I asked. His enemies. Why did they believe that?
They evidently did not believe it.
Stop. Which enemies could he possibly be referring to? Even if you were as charitable as you could humanly be, which enemies was he referring to?
I don't know.
Sorry, we're talking to one of us.
Yeah, I was asking Stops.
The thing is that in the beginning, in Mecca, nobody was convinced.
Right.
But he says his enemies thought it was supernatural, and nobody did.
Yeah.
The thing is that the Quran is just full of stories. So, okay, I look at it totally different, from a totally different perspective. So I need to first get into the mindset, okay, Muhammad existed, and he walks into Mecca, and he tells people, well, I was visited by an angel, and this angel told me something, and there you go, and there's the moon, and now it's split, and people saw that it was split, and brilliant, oh shit, this is really a god, and oh wow, this is so great, and now we all need to go and worship this god because he split the moon, and there's so many things which are like totally ridiculous. Yeah, somebody's saying Abu Lahab. What about him? He wasn't convinced.
And what about the fact that as soon as Muhammad died, you know, you had the Ridda Wars?
Yeah, they all scattered.
That's it. It's like, okay, he was good. We got some money from him. We got some women. We got some slaves, and now he's dead. And it's like, you know, all these people that genuinely believe that he was a final prophet were saying that they're prophets, and it's oh god, it's so stupid.
But on the point of him going into the cave, supposedly having this conversation with a mystery entity, and then people believing it. Hamza's question is, why would they believe it?
No, his question isn't that. His question is, how would they establish this in the 6th century? How would you establish it today?
No, wait.
Hang on a second.
Wait.
The claim that somebody walked into a cave and spoke to some entity, we don't know that it wasn't him having a schizophrenic episode. They wouldn't have known what that term meant, but him, you know, believing he spoke to something.
Or epileptic episode.
What's more reasonable, that, you know, you think you're speaking to something or you actually are? No, there's no other evidence out there except that you didn't even know who it was. But you come out, and the question, Hamza's question is, why would people believe it? His enemies. Now, we don't know if any enemies did, and stops, and that's why I stops the question, or were there any enemies? But let's assume, if we were super charitable, there was some enemy of his that believed it. And his question is, why would they believe it? And the simple answer is because they're credible and gullible. They would believe something without good reasons and evidence. Their critical faculties were not operating as we are able to do, well, some of us are able to do today. It's a straightforward answer.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Because what he said is, how would you be able to establish in the 6th century? And I'm just like, how would you be able to establish it today? I mean, he's making out that it's significant that it was in the Dark Ages. It wasn't. It is not relevant that it was in the 6th century, because how would you establish it today? You've got the exact same problem today as you did yesterday.
But the point is that he's asking the non-Muslim to make his point for him. This is the point that I would go on. Why would you want me to explain what Muhammad did or said or whatever? How would I know how people reacted to it? First of all, you need to establish what Muhammad said to whom and when and how, and then you need to show me how many of those who were his enemies actually went and believed that there was anything supernatural about it. He hasn't done that. He's just making claims and then saying, well, you show me how this is possible or not possible, or you show me how this is impossible. That's crazy.
You know, a couple of years ago when I was touring around America, I actually had a man ask me if I was a prophet.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was drinking in this bar in like the middle of rural Pennsylvania. And this was just after Hurricane Sandy hit. So there was like massive power cuts everywhere. And I just got into a chat with this bloke, and he was sort of telling me about some problems he had. And I just talked to him. I just gave him a bit of advice. He looked at me, and he actually said this really seriously. He went, "Are you a prophet?"
Oh, goodness. Okay, let's get to the end of this one.
The Qur'an is supernatural. Think about it. I will see you next time. Take care, my man.
See you, Hamza.
All the best.
Have a good week.
Okay. Thank you, Stops, for those two. Thank you very much for that.
It's done.
There you go.
Oh boy,
so
what a load of nonsense.
I mean, my takeaway from this, if people are interested in this, it's very easy to get caught up in what he said, she said, etc., which is, you know, one way of looking at it for sure. But the other is to notice what people are doing. Now, I'm quite happy to point out where my co-atheists are making mistakes or whatever the case is. But from what I can tell, they are not intentionally avoiding answering questions. They'll say they don't know, whatever the case is. And for me, what I look at now is what are the tactics that's being evolved, that are being used here? Is there shifting the burden of proof, or making that, you know, asking a question with begging the question with as Hamza did there, and asking you to justify why this is the case, when, as Stops has quite rightly pointed out, that they need to do that justification. And the answer was very simple in Hamza's case: things for bad reasons. There's your answer. Why would enemies believe it? They believe things on bad reasons. Not every single one of your enemies is going to be a critical thinker, no matter how much they like you or dislike you. That's not an indication of whether they can think clearly and rationally and reasonably. And so what's the more reasonable position would be my question, which is, did this man have an episode, a psychotic or psychological episode in a cave that he was completely confused about, then went and relayed and other people told him, which he just accepted? Or did he in fact have a supernatural experience? Which is more likely?
I think I just grill him on why he thinks there's any relevance whatsoever as to whether it happened in Dark Age Arabia or it happened an hour ago. You've got the exact same problems in both cases. There's no difference. I mean, you want to talk about gullible people? We can look at gullible people. I seriously had a bloke ask me if I was a prophet. He was serious. He looked at me. He had this expression of amazement at the profound wisdom I was giving him. His mouth was open. He went, "You were like," he was serious. He because this was someone who obviously believed in, like, he was a Christian. Obviously believed in that prophets walk the earth. He was serious. If you'd have been there, he actually genuinely asked me if I was a prophet. So it's not. So it's not just a gullibility thing. It's like, okay, how would you establish that a bloke in a cave had a supernatural experience in the 7th century? How is that relevant? How does it change anything? How would you do it today? I would have just. I think I would have stuck with that, because it's.
How does that address his point, Raven? How does that address his point?
It doesn't have a point. He thinks he has a point. It's like, oh, how would you have done it in the 7th century? How would you do it today? Explain to me exactly how it makes any difference whatsoever that it was in the 7th century and not today.
Okay, you're taking a completely different point. Okay, that wasn't the one I was talking about. All right, that's fine. I was talking about him asking the question to the other guy there, saying, why would it be the case that his enemies would believe that he had this supernatural experience?
Because people believe crazy shit.
People believe that they were impacted by aliens. Come on.
In those days, a lot of people had, sort of these mystical beliefs. If I put it charitably, they believe all kinds of things. The crops that the jinns brought down thunder, all this sort of stuff. 1400 years later, we've learned a lot of these things and how they happen naturally.
1400 years later, I'm meeting someone for the first time in rural Pennsylvania, and he's asking me if I'm a prophet. So, again, I don't really see how it's relevant.
Okay, but you're on a different point again. Is your main is the point that you are talking about? Because I must have missed that. I went to the toilet at one point. Was there somewhere in the video where he said that because it happened in the 6th century, therefore it's more likely to be true than if it happened at any other time? Is that what he said at some point in the video?
I think he kind of meant that. He didn't actually say it, but he was just like, okay, like, because he actually said that he actually said that if some bloke came out of the cave saying he had a supernatural experience with a messenger of God, that he would actually take this and he would actually testify in court that it was true. Not true that the person had claimed this, but true that it actually happened. And then he was like, okay, so how would you prove you had a supernatural experience in the 7th century? Well, how would you prove you had it today? He thinks he's made a point.
Well, the point is, the question is incorrectly phrased. How would you prove it? That's begging the question. You need to demonstrate that, in fact, it was a supernatural experience. You don't ask somebody else, how do they prove it? You've claimed that he had the supernatural experience. You need to demonstrate it. You don't ask me, how would I prove that he had a supernatural experience? Or how would he prove it? I don't care. He's got to do it. The burden is not on me to tell him how he needs to prove that. He's got to show it to us if he wants us to believe it. Simple. I just want to see if anybody wanted to join us. There were a few people that might have wanted to join in. Anything else on your side, Stops?
Nope.
The day, in case we're going to finish.
Oh, shit. Okay. 9:10.
We've got about 32 viewers. I don't know how many are Muslim there.
Did everybody click thumbs up?
We only had 22 thumbs up, so maybe it's people that can't do it or forgot or just haven't responded.
22 thumbs up. Well, 1,788 thumbs up to go, and then Rob will flash and snipple.
I don't think we'll go quite that far.
Sahih Bukhari, Volume 4, Book 54, number 414. Muhammad said, first of all, there was nothing but Allah. Then he created his throne. His throne was over the water. And he, this is Allah, the God, he wrote everything in the book, in the heaven, and created the heavens and the earth.
Fantastic, eh? Everybody can make up mystery stories, huh?
You know, I've just realised that by Hamza's own point, I actually have the same credibility of being the prophet as Muhammad does. In fact, he thinks it's more ludicrous that someone would believe it today. So I think by Hamza's own logic, I might actually have a better claim of prophethood than Muhammad.
Well, are there people today that really believe that this is supernatural?
What do you mean?
I find that so hard to believe that there would be people today who are willing to believe that this is really supernatural.
Well, I mean, just look at the evangelical Christians who are absolutely rejoicing. Trump saying we're recognizing the capital of Jerusalem. You've got evangelicals coming out of the woodworks talking about how this is the first step to ushering all the Jews back to the land of Israel and ushering about the return of Christ and the end of the world. They really believe it.
Is it really that? I thought this was more riding up Muslims.
No. See, the thing is, right, you've got to take into account Mike Pence, the vice president, right? I mean, he is a huge leader of the evangelicals, and like so many of the American Christian evangelical movement that comes with Israeli support, it's not because they actually give a shit about Jews. It's because they think that when all the Jews are gathered back to the land of Israel, Christ will return, and then the book of Revelations will happen, and will be the apocalypse, and the world will end. I mean, they're actually trying to usher in the end of the world. But this is like the Islamic State, though. I mean, if you think of like a lot of locations that they've taken, some of the towns that they've taken, a lot of them have absolutely no strategic value. They're doing it because what the prophecies of Islam says is that this will happen in this specific location, this will happen in this specific location, and this will bring about the end times. I mean, keep in mind, this organization is like the way that they actually get their followers. I mean, you look at their publication, Dabiq, right? It's so full of religious literature. I mean, whether or not the top people in the Islamic State, whether or not the generals believe it, I don't know. But they get in their cannon fodder by claiming that they are fulfilling prophecy and ushering in the end times.
Okay, was that it for today?
Yeah,
that was the sermon. That's from Prophet Raven, the sermon of the evening after the hadith of the week.
Can you think of any hadiths that you could interpret as like alien visitation?
Raven.
I'm just curious.
Yes.
No, we won't go off on that tangent now. I think we will say goodnight to everybody. Thank you to the viewers and the people in the chat. We'll see you next week. I will be looking at a few videos with Stops, that Stops has sent me, because we do want to do a show in the near future on the Surah Like It challenge. So we'll look at doing that at some point.
We need to set this up, eh?
When you say set it up, what do you mean?
That you need to get people on here, and then you need to, because I spent a lot of time getting the structure right, so that you actually get somebody who says, okay, yes, I can recognize it. We need somebody here who speaks Arabic, like Abu or somebody, and we need to have a some innocent victim who will go and need to speak Arabic, who can actually go and read this and who knows the Quran.
Oh no,
preferably 3 or 4.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll be able to do that.
So I don't know if Marshall is going to be enough. Saracen doesn't speak Arabic, so I don't know who's going to do that.
I have a friend I could ask. She's not actually. I don't know. Then again, she's kind of got stuff in her own life. I have someone I could ask.
Muslim.
Ex-Muslim.
No.
What if we wanted an Arabic speaker?
Arabic is Muslim.
So you want an Arabic speaker who is also a Muslim?
Yep. Or the other way around.
Well, who's that one that you talked to? The one in Baghdad.
No. It needs to be a Muslim.
He is a Muslim.
In Baghdad?
Was that one in Baghdad? And like you got into a thing with him because he was apparently justifying slavery in your eyes. And what was his name? Was it Ahmed? Actually, no. I think you ended up blocking him. Oh no! You called him a disgusting human being and blocked him. So yeah, I just remembered that.
Oh, that was another Ahmed though. Because he kept insulting all the people who were watching my videos. Everybody who was commenting was being insulted. That was not.
Well, have you got have you got Marshall's contact details?
No.
Well, I've got him on Skype, so I mean, I could either add you and him, or I could just ask him.
No, we're not going to ask him. No, he's not the right person for that. I know what you want to do, Stops. You almost want them to not know what's coming, and then you present them 2 verses. That's one way to do it.
No. This is about the surah like it. This is about showing or asking Muslims if they are able to identify this. This is setting it up so that we show them how ludicrous this this claim is by actually presenting them with sentences, and we want them to help us identify what is what. And we want somebody who is knowledgeable on Islam, somebody who can read Arabic, and somebody who can tell us if this is actually from the Quran or not. And that's it. But we need those prerequisites, because otherwise it really does not make sense. If you get somebody on here like Marshall, it doesn't really help.
Maybe Marshall has a friend.
Yeah, but it sounds like Stops. Okay, so you want to sort of reveal that they wouldn't know the difference.
Of course.
Otherwise, the show could just be on here are verses that us non-believers into people. But then I guess you're telling them, you're tipping your hand as to what these verses are. And people have time to go and try and find refutation. We'll talk about that, and so as I said, that may need more time.
You just cut out. I didn't hear that.
Sorry.
You're still cutting.
Can you hear me now?
Now you're coming back.
All right. Well, let's call it that. It's been difficult here anyway, and I think maybe a little bit of Stops dropping out a few times. Joining the videos. Thank you to the viewers, chat, and we will see you at the same time next. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Oh, and Rob, give me a message on Skype if you want to have that conversation about knowledge. Bye-bye.